back and go through some of the minutes of 9 and then about the end. I think there's going to be some references.
Good evening. Welcome to the November 12th, 2014 work session of Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We need to have our statement of mission read, please.
All right, I have that here. Richmond Community Schools guide students on pathways of learning to a future of limitless possibilities.
Thank you, Susie. And now our vision statement.
Richmond Community Schools, a community nurturing mind, body, and spirit to prepare students for lives of choice, purpose, and service.
Thank you, Kelly. Now we're ready for our showcase video.
And our video tonight focuses on health, our health and wellness program for the students, and we're also going to hear from some of our physical education teachers this evening to kick off the conversation this month on health and wellness.
Location of the site.
It's with all the things we do at station work, it's a chance to see how fast, you can move an obstacle. The obstacle is built for speed, climbing under things, crawling under things, jumping over things, zigzagging between things, getting on a scooter, paddling on a scooter, pulling yourself on a rope on a scooter, just different things to challenge your, physical fitness. And you do it for time. How fast can you do it? And then after that, what you saw was the Mission Possible, which is a series of tests with ball manipulation type skills. You have to make a basket to go on. You have to stick a ball to go on. You have to roll the ball in bowling, knock down a pin to go on. They swim in Hibbard, which is a great program. I know when I played baseball in college, I swam as much as I ran, and it made a difference in my physical ability to pitch the ball, throw the ball to last, endurance, and my flexibility. But they have that. They have basketball opportunities here, which I'm coaching for 8th grade Dennis. Joe Lou's asked me to coach, and I said, yeah, okay. It's been kind of fun. Much coach always said, you can't manage what you can't measure, which is also a business type of term, but it makes sense. You can't, if you're coaching and I have no idea what my players are doing hitting wise or whatever, I can't make decisions based on that. So this helps you to kind of say, look guys, look how much better we're getting at this.
We're going on a bowling field trip. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. And they have to learn what it means to get a strike and a spare as they're bowling, and so we have them keep score. A lot of them, their question will be, okay, why do I have to learn this when the computer does it? And I tell them, well, you're going to get in a bowling tournament, or maybe you're going to get on a league as you get older and you get to work, and so you got to know what it means to get a strike and a spare. And so they do understand what it means to get a strike and a spare, and how that advances your score a lot higher if you do that. Yeah, that's really good. Well, we talked that up at the beginning when we talk about it, and they're pretty excited about that because there's quite a few kids here that are on bowling leagues now and are avid bowlers, but they asked could I bring my bowling ball and my shoes and stuff tomorrow? And I said, yeah, that'd be fine. I think it's very important. I try to hit a lot of things they can use as lifetime sports. We go over frisbee, I do golf, we do the bowling unit, we do a physical fitness unit, and they learn, what it means to have a healthy lifestyle. So hopefully they continue that once they get out of school, just not in gym class. I'm teaching 42 years. This is pretty fun.
Remember, this is the joy of celebrating the joy of learning. That's the topic. And here to help us focus on what that might mean, we have Ryan Higgins, we have Karen Pittman. Do we have another PE teacher?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Cindy?
Pam.
Pam here too?
Yeah.
Oh, I should have known. Yeah. Would the four of you come forward? And bring the dog. Pam, you might want to tell us what that dog's all about.
Oh, this is Kona. She's from Michigan, and we're training her to be a service dog. She goes to school with me every day and has to, all these distractions, she has to focus. So she's pretty amazing. And the kids, it's been neat to see that bonding with the other kids. She had an issue one day where she was choking, and they were very worried about her. I'm like, she's okay. But it's really been a great experience, so thank you.
Well, we're glad to have her with us tonight.
Thank you.
One of the questions that we had as we were previewing this video was there wasn't a lot of discussion on the video about standards. And could you comment, and this is unrehearsed, folks, could you comment on what standards, not what the standards are in your lessons every day, but the impact the standards movement has had on your teaching of physical education at whatever level you are?
Go ahead. I'll throw you under the bus first.
Okay. I think.
Can you step to the mic?
Okay.
That way we can record you. Thank you.
I just think the standards have just made us realize that the things that we were teaching, that we were doing that right. We were just more focused. I know a lot of the standards, like the locomotor skills, we've always taught locomotor skills, but it just verifies that what you're doing is right, and that when you teach those standards, the kids learn by progression, and it just ties your program all in to a nice, neat package with a bow on it. Thank you.
As far as the high school, we focus on lifetime activities and lifetime fitness. So we do, depending on which level they're taking, PE 1 or 2, we have a fitness component that we work on every day. And in one of them, they get what's called a fitness gram, and it's a printout. It's individualized. It tells them where they started and where they finished. So it shows their improvement, and we're tracking their improvement. We do their mile time, crunches, push-ups, body fat, weight, flexibility, and we test it 4 times during the trimester. The first time is the pre-test, or our baseline, and then we hope by the end of the period, or the end of the trimester, that they've improved in all of those categories, and 90% of the time they do, which is nice to see. And then they get to understand that, okay, that weight on the scale means something, but it doesn't mean as much as the body fat. And we tell them, you know, if your body fat is high and you're losing the body fat, but the scale is going up, that's okay, because that means you're turning that fat into muscle. And you want to focus on the body fat and get that into a healthy area. And then we do activities as well, like tennis and volleyball, and the standards help with that, and things that we know that they can do forever. I mean, you can always pick up a tennis racket, go out and play. You can play volleyball in the backyard, things like that.
Thank you.
She's had a long day. I really am very fortunate that I get to see 3rd through 8th grade. So the standards start to build. We build on those same 7 standards. And so that's been really neat just to see, being there now for 3 years. The kids progress physically, but not only physically. Their sportsmanship is really, I really have a big deal of this. Like, they have to be good sports, and being kind to others. And then we have life skills, who's also involved in their classes as well. And that's brought another neat dynamic to our classroom. So just like Cindy, we do the physical fitness testing and the growth off of that. But more than that, there's the emotional, not just the physical, but the emotional side with the kids. And so it's an enjoyable job and an honor to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, in terms of joy of learning, I invite any of you to have a chance to walk into one of my gym classes, and you'll definitely see the joy of learning, because with the elementary kids, we're pretty much rock stars, and it's the highlight of your day.
Pretty.
I don't want to take anything away from the classroom teachers, but no, really, honestly, you know, for some kids, you know, they're really good at music, and some kids they're really good with art. And I think physical fitness and physical movement allows certain students to have a different range, and it kind of gets all the squirrels out of them and kind of gets them moving, gets their heart pumping, and honestly, you know, gets their brain moving. So standards, that's something that we've all really strived for to, you know, guide our classroom towards. But with elementary phys ed, there's a fine line. You want to promote health and fitness. You want the kids to have fun. You don't want to put anybody in a certain situation that they're uncomfortable with. So really, for us, we have to kind of navigate that and try to encourage the kids to work hard, try to encourage them to start now with healthy eating habits, and hopefully that will carry with them. And as Pam said, it's a true joy to have the opportunity to work with our kids each day and promote health and fitness and physical movement. Thank you.
I know that your primary goal is wellness and physical fitness, but I'm also aware that you've spent quite a bit of time in the last several years doing things to support in your class what's happening in the classroom. Could maybe one of you speak to that a little bit to describe that? Because I think the vocabulary, the literature, even the math skills, I think that that's an awesome connection that you all make.
At the high school, we focus on writing in every class we do, and physical education is no different. When we start a trimester, we have them write 3 goals that they wish to achieve and how they're going to achieve it. And then at the end of that trimester, we bring that paper back out and say, okay, did you reach your goals? If you did, write down and explain to us how you met them and why you met them, and if you didn't, tell us what you could have done to reach them, and if you're going to continue to strive towards them. So we add writing into our curriculum. Math is obvious. I mean, that's obvious with just about anything. You've got to keep score. So, but we do a lot of different cross-curricular things.
I've mentioned this before. At Westview, I work with a first grade LEAP group on Mondays and on Wednesdays. And the teacher and I kind of work close together there, Mrs. Ronimus and myself. And sometimes she'll bring some ideas to the table, and then sometimes I have my ideas. But basically, I take a group of like 7 to 8 kids to the gym, and I've worked on bowling there so they can work on their mathematical skills. Verbs and nouns, kind of create like a racing games with verbs and nouns. So, you know, supporting the teachers, and if the kids can see that, then I think that goes a long way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much for what you do for our students with health and wellness. And also thank you for not bringing jump ropes and making us jump, or tennis and making us hit balls. Thanks. Personally, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
As they're moving away to the podium, I might want to, if somebody recognized the face of Ryan Higgins as something that they might have seen on the internet recently, he is on the DOE website along with Glenda Ritz, having been celebrated last Friday night as one of the semifinalists for Teacher of the Year, State of Indiana.
That would be our second year in a row, right?
That's right. We've been blessed with quite a few in the last few years. Our next item would be recognition of American Education Week, and there is a proclamation. I invite you to have our secretary read that proclamation.
Aaron, would you please read the proclamation for American Education Week?
Be happy to. Whereas American schools form the foundation of our democracy, providing each new generation the wherewithal to serve as stewards for our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality, and whereas schools are the primary influence in children's lives aside from their families, and whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills broader intellectual abilities. Schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas schools are community linchpins bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise, and whereas the employees of Richmond Community Schools work tirelessly and transparently to serve our children and community with care, professionalism, integrity, and the highest expectations, and whereas all efforts of the employees and all the resources of the organization are committed to the academic success of each student in every classroom, every grade level, and in every subject area. And whereas there is nothing more crucial to the social and economic health and the future of our community and nation than education, now therefore we, the Board of School Trustees for Richmond Community Schools, do hereby proclaim November 17th to 21, 2014 as American Education Week, dated today, November 12th, 2014.
Thank you. And just a huge thank you to all of our employees. And we hope that American Education Week is celebrated throughout our schools and our community. And those people who are making it happen for our students will be blessed in many ways. So thank you. Any other comments from board members?
Can we take a motion on that?
We probably need to. Are you,
I'll make the motion.
Kelly Baumgartner
Accept the
makes the
proclamation.
motion,
I'll second the motion.
and Aaron seconds. Go right ahead.
Again, what can we say about the work that not only our teachers, but every employee of Richmond Community Schools do to not only ensure the best education opportunities for our students and enhance that, but also the loving spirit which they come to every day, and even on the weekends and late nights. Again, so many of them prove that this is not a job, but it's their profession and avocation, and we are honored and blessed to have them.
Absolutely. Anybody else?
I should tell you that to recognize the work of our staff members, teachers especially, parents from our parent leadership group are sending statements, and they're very brief statements, but they're statements of support and gratitude, and the staff will be blessed with those comments. I think you never hear enough in encouragement and gratitude, and that's what the parents are planning to do.
Wonderful. Well, I encourage everyone that's here and anyone that is watching at some point, hopefully they will be watching the board meeting, to thank the people that are helping our children become great citizens. So just say thank you, and it means a lot to be thanked. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Are there any other celebrations this evening that we want to focus on during this time? I just have one, and I would like to celebrate the life of Rusty Hollingsworth, a former teacher who passed away last week, and he certainly exemplified what was just read. And so I just wanted to celebrate his life tonight. Anything else? Aaron?
Later tonight at Tiernan Center at 7:30, and I hate saying this now, especially after you had just mentioned Rusty, but I'll say it as a segue. We have 3 of our student athletes who are being honored. They will be signing national letters of intent to continue education in college, and it's a high honor, and it's very noteworthy that they're doing this together tonight. So,
Okay. That's pretty exciting.
yes.
Thanks. Anything else? Okay, we are ready to move on to public commentary. Anyone signed up to speak or anyone wishing to speak this evening?
No, we don't have anybody signed up.
Okay, then we're ready for consent items.
Our consent items are pretty limited tonight. We have 2 items, approval of our minutes and then the recommendation from Human Resources, and I don't believe that has an addendum this evening. So those 2 items I recommend for approval.
So moved.
Okay, motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to reports, discussion topics.
Our first report is concerning the crossing, and we have spokespeople from the crossing to introduce you to the concept and the program tonight. I would encourage the board to be aware there is not a recommendation tonight, but receipt of information is so important as we factor our decisions in the near future. The Crossing is an alternative education program, and I will leave it to them to tell you how that might be a nice fit with what we're currently offering. I introduce Stan Good.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. And I was a public school teacher for 5 years and administrator for 20, so 25 years. Attended many, many board meetings. I can tell you they're a lot more fun now because I get invited in and get to see what other people do. It's taken me a number of years. I followed Dr. Boroff here. We were in neighboring schools for a number of years and really never had the pleasure of spending time with them until recently. So it does feel like a little bit of home when I see a familiar face. But it is our privilege to be here. And in just a moment, I'll introduce our CEO and founder, Rob Staley, who made the 4-hour trip down here because he believes it's that important. In my time as principal, I always had a special heart for students that, for whatever reason, struggled. And we, as every school, have some. And we did a lot of different things. And when I was approached 3 years ago for the opportunity to join this organization, it was a pretty easy decision because now I could spend the rest of my healthy years helping the students that I've always had a heart and a passion for. So what we try to identify is, are there areas, are there pockets of school corporations or a school corporation that we can partner with? We are not a standalone school. We're not a charter school. We simply are in existence to partner with public schools. That's our heart. That's our passion. And what we want to do, and the state has blessed us with the opportunity to, what we want to do is round up any young person that is on the street and get them re-enrolled. That is our segment of population. That's our first and foremost population. Are there any students of high school age that aren't currently enrolled? Also, are there students that are facing expulsion, and instead of expulsion, is there a better place than the streets? We have 19 schools across the state. Early this morning, received verbal commitment to open up school number 20 on the southeast side of Indianapolis. That school is actually going to open up in January. And then an hour or two later, received verbal commitment on the southwest side of Indianapolis and another school corporation to open up next year. We try to work ahead so that we can get community people involved. I've met with member of your high school staff. I can tell you can be very proud of them. I can tell within moments that they care deeply about students. And so we're one more avenue, one more tool to say, can we come alongside of you and help educate these young people? So Rob will kind of take you through that, exactly more specifically what that looks like. Again, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a joy already to meet a number of people here, and we're very excited about the possibilities. So with that, I'll let Rob take you through this. Then we'll answer questions at the end.
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. We get a chance to practice this quite often, and we have had the opportunity to be able to be blessed to interact with a lot of educators across the state of Indiana. So I'll start out with our mission statement. I'm not going to go through every slide here because this will probably really bore you, and it'll take me 3 hours, and I know I have about 10 minutes. And I know that will be, I have to get home sometime tonight. So the Crossing Educational Center is a component that says we're a community-based program, and that it focuses on both academics and job training. As I continue to present tonight, you will see quickly that this is really about a job training program, but we are a state-accredited school where our kids are receiving high school diplomas and regular high school credit. We are endorsed by the state of Indiana. We have a very close relationship with the Department of Education. As a matter of fact, there was quite a bit of legislative law that was written to protect our model and to enhance our model in working with other schools. Our mission statement is something that we hang our hat on and we tag it every single day when we make a decision, and that is that we are empowering, and by the way, that doesn't say controlling, because you don't control this group. You empower them, and they're struggling kids, and that's our niche, just that little group, and we are empowering struggling kids to become contributing members of your community. These kids are going to stay here for a long time, and we're going to do that through academics and job training and faith-based mentoring. So those words are all really important to us, and we spend a lot of time, but know that we're focusing on 3 things here: academics, job training, and faith-based mentoring. Our whole organization is pretty simple. I will tell you that it's we're not shy about telling you that we love God, and we love people, and we love life. Loving God is the foundation of who we are. Loving people is what we do, and as you can imagine, some of our students struggle with even knowing what that means, and that's one of the things that we teach and train. And then loving life, we have a lot of fun. We play hard. We're a little dangerous group, quite honestly, and life is a little dangerous because that's what these kids need and what they want. They want adventure and excitement, but something that's under control. On the right-hand side, we focus on 4 core areas in our organization. It's academics. We're a state-accredited school. We follow the Indiana state standards, just like you just discussed in your physical education program. We have a character education base, we have a leadership program, and then we have our job training or our careers. In the middle, you will see that the character education component is built upon our core values in our organization. It's called Relit to us. We are training our kids on a daily basis in a 30-minute family time to interact on relationships, empowerment, love, integrity, and truth. Those are the things that we focus on and discuss on a daily basis. I'm going to breeze through some of these, but the bottom line is we're a high school program, ages 14 through 20. I know that you have an Excel in town, right? An Excel program. Scott Best is a great friend. I know Joe White is a legend here, and he is an amazing guy. We have is that your son or something?
It's my cousin, but my son works there too.
Okay. So just so you know, every place we go, people go, what about Excel? That's the first question I get everywhere we go. We just happen to be best friends with Excel. We have a letter of agreement with them. You know what we are with Excel? We're a continuum of services for them. We go down to high school age. They're supposed to be an adult ed program, and usually our agreement with them is 19 and older. So what would it look like in your community to not only have an Excel program, which does a fabulous job, but what if we could extend that down to reaching your struggling kids with now a high school educational program that has alternatives in job training? They are great friends of ours. As a matter of fact, I'm proud to say I'm a board member of Excel. So I believe in their program, and we believe in our partnership there. We're focusing on career internships and work teams and micro businesses, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute. A couple of facts. Stan said it well, we are a school that was created to support the public school system. We are public school educators. I stand before you running a private school as a public school educator. I spent 25 years in public education. 20 years I was a principal. Spent the last 20 years at Concord High School as a principal in Elkhart, Indiana. Love public education and thoroughly believe in public education, but my colleagues need help with struggling kids. And it's probably even not sane thinking to think that you really can educate all kids in all situations. I know we like to say that, but the reality is there's a group of kids, that lower 5 to 10%, they're causing us a lot of time and a lot of trouble, and they just need something that looks different. Honestly, we started this program because as I was expelling kids from a high school as a high school principal, I had the opportunity to be able to spend a lot of time behind bars, and when I was behind bars, not as an inmate, I went in and I had a pass to go behind bars, and I would visit my students, and they started to design and communicate with me what it would look like to create a different educational model that worked for them. And the key word is it worked for them, not just what I thought, but what they thought. And that's where we came up with the faith-based component, the careers, the leadership, and so on. We currently have 40-plus schools. As a matter of fact, that changes daily. And there are 291 public schools in Indiana school districts. We're at 40. Next year we'll be well over 50 school districts. So you can see that we kind of have a pace that's going on with our different campuses. Our structures, we're a half-day academics and a half-day job training. We average about 25 students in a classroom with about a 1-to-7 ratio. So if we start our classroom with 25, we'll immediately hire in 3 teachers and interact with those kids on a real regular basis. And we use an Apex software, which is a computer-based program. This takes 2 components to make this happen. It takes the component that we're talking about right now, that's a public school partnership, and then it takes your community. If you're sitting around here tonight and decide that this is a great program, it's only half of the process. The other half is that we have to have the community involved. So we will go to your community, we'll meet with your judicial system, we'll meet with probation, we'll meet with your youth pastors, we'll meet with all of your key players in your community that deal with some of our students, and we'll pull them together and say, we're going to create a board of directors here for our school, and we need your support, and it's really essential because we can't do this on our own. Funding, everybody wants to ask about money. In order for us to open a school in the community, we need a commitment to 40 kids. That's 40 kids that you will fund to us, and what we would like to do is we'd like to round up your dropouts from your last couple of years or any troubled kids that you have in your school. One of the things that we take a lot of pride on is that our public school partnerships tell us you really enhance the culture of our school by pulling those kids out that were taking a lot of our time. And I know what that meant as a principal because we dealt with those 5 to 10% of the kids constantly, same kids. Pull them out, get them in a different environment, and allow your kids to rise to the top and have higher performance. We then re-enroll them through your school, and then you get new money from the state, and then you transfer a portion of that money back to us. That's the way we fund this. This should not, if it's done right, should not cost you a nickel out of your pocket when it's all said and done at the end of the year. We have set this model up, and the reason why we start school so fast is that people don't have money, and we know that, but we've created a model that allows them to do that with the transfer of tuition. Core academics, high school diploma, we discussed that. There's just some pictures there. You can see our computer labs and some of our students. We love our kids, by the way. And I'll just keep telling you that we love our kids. Our curriculum is based on the Indiana standards. We talked about that. It is the Stephen Covey dimensions, 4 dimensions. And approximately 50% of our credit is on a computer, but our students raise their hand. We had a lot of dialogue a couple years ago, and they go, hey, look, we used to sit in a classroom, be bored from a lecture, and now we're bored from sitting on a computer. Can we do something different? We recreated a model. 50% of our curriculum is now in small learning groups around a table, and there's often a lot of dialogue, and there's other traditional things that go on there, and 50% is in a self-paced program called Apex. Our other component we talked about is character. Really, here's what it gets down to. Our kids don't have a moral compass. And so we introduce to them concepts in life that would create a moral compass in your life that said, this is not the right thing to do. You need to stop and pause. And it starts with people you run with, places you go, and things you do. And we talk about PPT all the time with our kids. And once they get the concept and understand, and we create all kinds of different learning activities like camping out. In our family rooms, we have that dialogue. On the top page, there's a farmer invited us out to have some time on the farm. We're constantly with our kids. This is a holistic model that doesn't say school's out at 4. We just gear up at 4 o'clock, and we do a lot of things. Faith-based education is always questionable. The objective is established at True North, and every single day we have 30 minutes of what we call family time, and basically what that is you sit on couches in a circle, and the kids say, look, here's what we're concerned about, here's what's going on in our life. Almost every single week in our organization we deal with a death, either a death of a family member. We've buried 14 of our own students in the last 10 years. It's a tough run, and it's painful. But we have to experience the pain in order to get to the top of the mountain, and a whole lot of our kids are winning, including 453 graduates in the last 10 years. Relationships is key. People often ask us, well, why is your alternative school any different than ours? The answer to that is a lot of the things are the same. However, we're the alternative to the alternative. We are not in competition with your alternative program. It continues to do good things. It continues to enhance the educational learning for certain kids, but what if kids don't make it in your alternative program? What if they're already on the street? Those are the kids that we scoop up across the state of Indiana, and there's about 40,000 kids in Indiana on the street that are not being educated right now. So trips to Haiti, canoe trips, snow trips, riding four-wheelers, gun safety. By the way, we have a lot of kids in our program that have been expelled from school for weapons, including guns. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a long conversation about that. Our kids are involved in anybody who's in this is going to immediately go to an NRA course, and we're going to say, look, this is dangerous. This is stupidity. If you want to go to a controlled range and you want to shoot a gun, we'll go to a controlled range with you, and we'll learn how to do this. But other than that, and by the way, just telling kids not to carry guns doesn't work. We tried that. So there's an education piece that goes along with this. I shouldn't really hit, that's a hot point. I shouldn't really talk about that. Leadership, building upon a natural ability to lead. Here's one thing we know. Our kids, some of them are gang leaders. I know you don't have any of those around here, but they are in the state of Indiana. And they're incredible leaders. They can convince their buddies to go rob 7-Eleven. That's what I call leadership in the wrong direction. What if you take the natural leadership? Here's why we have to expel them from school. They lead kids to clown around. They're funny. They make people laugh, but they lead people to do wrong things. Take the natural leadership ability that they have, create a moral compass, turn their feet on a different leadership path, and watch them lead like you've never experienced before. So we always tell our kids, you're going to be the next mayor. You're going to be on the school board. You're going to be on the county council. And that's what we're preparing you to be because you're natural leaders. And we really believe that as we continue to focus on that. Careers, we talked about that. Our kids are out in internships. We create micro businesses. We have kids that are in every kind of career across the county. And by the way, when our kids graduate from our school, we want them to leave with a high school diploma, multiple job certifications, and a job placement. For these kids to leave here with just a diploma is not a good thing. Now you may go, hey, wait a minute. What are they going to do with a diploma if they don't have networking? They don't have the opportunity to know anybody that's going to get them a job. They don't know how to go apply for a job. We're going to work them through that whole process, and we actually hire people in our communities to help with job placement. We start our own businesses. If you can imagine, one thing you wouldn't do with a high school kid is give them a chainsaw. We have trained arborists. Our kids now travel all over the Midwest. Last weekend we camped out in a local park, knocked down 100 diseased trees. And as I was driving through town, I always look at trees, and we went through the Glen Miller Park, and I'm going, there's some dead trees out there. We would roll in, we did in Indianapolis a couple months ago, we rolled into town with 15 kids, all high school kids, all highly trained, and took care of all the diseased trees for Greenwood and also Whiteland. And they have great pride in doing that, and they're very, very well skilled. Crossing results, 485 graduates, 77% of our graduates last year received a non-waiver diploma. That means the kids who have failed every program are now coming into our program, and they're passing ECA tests. That's how they get a regular diploma. They all got a diploma, but some of them were waivers. 84% attendance when kids were getting 10% and 15%, and 84% of our kids come to our program, stay with us. And then you can kind of see some of the statistics. If the government could write a program where 91% of the kids were less involved in gang activity, we'd pay a lot of money for that. It's all about relationships and new identity. And it's a pretty simple thing. Evidence-based practices, this is nothing new to you. This is all the stuff you have to chart. We chart all this through lifetime reporting through the Department of Education, and we're held accountable by our school partnerships. And then there's our vision statement. It's really about transforming life through education, and we focus on two things, the heart and the mind. I raced through that. I apologize if I talk too fast, but what kind of questions do you have?
One of the questions that's been brought up a few times is, where would this be?
Wherever we can find a building. And it's our obligation to come to your community. Sometimes we are located in an abandoned school building. Like, for an example, you have a closed down for a school. So if it's an elementary or junior high, today when we were in the southeast corner, they decided that they wanted to allow us to use their junior high that's closed down. Or sometimes we're in warehouses because we start job training programs and we create the classroom and a lab in a warehouse environment. But it's our responsibility to be able to work with your community and find a facility.
What happens if a student enrolls after ADM day?
We pray a lot. Yeah. So what happens is that we want to make sure that we try to enroll kids before ADM. We also know that our enrollment grows every day. We're enrolling 25 kids a week now. So what that means is that we're always going to take the kid. We're going to look at you and you're going to go, hey, look, I didn't get money for this kid. And we're going to, okay, we understand that. What we're going to do is we raise $500,000 a year in what we call a scholarship granting organization that's a 50% state tax benefit to contributors. And we will pay for those kids through private tuition until we roll around to the next ADM and try to get them in the door. Sometimes you look at these kids and go, I don't think we're going to take that one. That kid could really affect our data. And we're going to go, okay, we're going to keep him on a scholarship. We're going to continue to pay for him. And next year we're going to try to come back to the door. But we raise a lot of money. And in one night, we just had a banquet last week and raised $400,000. So that's in one community. We'll raise $1.5 million this year in the state of Indiana to make this happen.
Well, it's kind of overwhelming. I need kind of time to process this.
Sorry.
To know the right questions. So.
Sorry, I haven't processed it myself. So, and it, by the way, once we get it down, it will change tomorrow. When we're in such a rapid growth, we started just 10 years ago with 2 teachers. We now have 110. And we hire teachers every single week because of our enrollment goes up. We never cap any students. So if we come to your community and you say we're going to start with 40, and you send us 75, we'll staff and build for 75 people. We will never turn a kid away from our building, ever. The only exception is if they're extremely low functioning, like a MI classification in special ed, we can't hire aides for those kids and give them that kind of training, but we will take a kid with a 70 IQ or higher, and we have about 300 special ed kids in our organization that are excited and successful, not because of the computer program and not only because of the relationship, but because of the job training program. We have public schools now that don't even send their kids to our academic program, but send them only to the job training program because some of these special ed kids with disabilities are just not doing well in a full-day environment. So why not let them use their hands and give them a purpose and a cause by working? And work does amazing things. Work is caused by God to give us purpose. And we really believe that, and it's really the glue that holds our whole program together.
Is the faith-based component a requirement for the students every day?
So every day we're going to blow the horn. Everybody's going to circle up after 90 minutes of class. It is a requirement that everybody gathers in the room and sit on the couch because when we have family time, it's not always religious-based. As a matter of fact, if you can imagine gathering these kids in a room and talking about God, it doesn't work that way. I mean, that's not what we do. This is not a church. It's not a Bible study. It's nothing like that. What this is that we had to call it a faith-based component because our kids drill into life really hard and ask hard questions, and they always want to bring up the topic of God. They want to know. By the way, if my life is so screwed up, where is this God? And how can you believe in something I can't see in all those conversations? We want to have the opportunity to be able to answer some of those questions the best we can. So in different times, we'll just say, let's talk about your attendance. Let's talk about some goals. Let's talk about this. So it's not necessarily tied into any kind of a biblical concept or anything. At any time when our students enroll, they sign a waiver that says, I understand there's a faith-based component to this school. And that any time during that conversation, they can opt out of that room. And they can leave and go back to the lab. So we've actually serviced over 7,000 kids in 11 years. How many kids, can you guess, left that room out of 7,000 in the last 11 years? The answer is 9. 9 kids, one time, walked out of the room, went back to the lab. Our kids tell us in our survey, that component is what makes the crossing work. I need to belong to something. This is my family. We are very transparent, and we talk about everything, including having guest speakers come in all the time and sharing their story. And our kids regain hope by looking at their life saying, maybe there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe there is hope in my life.
Rob, can you talk about the 2 pots of money, just so they know their money's going for education?
Yes. Yes. So in our financial setup, what you're paying for is when your money comes in an organization, it goes into one bucket for a secular education. This is not a Christian education program. This is a non-religious program with Apex software. I used it in the public school for years, and you may use it as well. It's well known. It is not a Christian education program. Your money comes in for a non-religious education. 30 minutes a day, we do the family time. We raise separate money for the faith-based component, so that we have to legally keep those two in separate buckets. And we have worked with attorneys all over the nation, and I could give you some of the names, you'd recognize them, that have set this model up for us to be free of any. Now, when vouchers came through, it kind of killed it all anyways, because everybody's going, what's the difference? You can get a voucher and go to a Christian school anyway, so all that kind of subsided. But we're very careful that in our community, we will raise 10% of our salaries and benefits of our teachers, which will be, let's just say it's $30,000 in your community that goes into faith-based bucket that will support the family time activities.
And that's a good segue to my question. It's where do you recruit these teachers from?
Oh, that's a great question. All over the United States. Last year we hired from South California, Florida, Pennsylvania, Tennessee. The word is kind of out that we are a unique and different model, and here's what it is. I'm a teacher, and I just want to teach kids. Okay, I don't need a lot of bureaucracy. I just want to teach kids, and I want to love on kids. I'm a Christian person that wants to share my faith, and I want to share God's love with kids, and so that makes us a little unique. And then these are struggling kids. So when you take struggling kids, a faith-based model, and I can teach, that draws a unique crowd. And we get most of our, we work very hard. As a matter of fact, Stan was in Ohio just last couple of weeks working with universities, and we're creating pipelines because we're hiring so many people. So we work very closely with IWU, Taylor University, Bethel College. We get some kids out of Ball State. But we have a real recruiting network out there because we hire so many people. We just had a lady move in from New York yesterday. We hired her in Marion, and we had a young lady come from Jackson, Michigan, and we just hired her today in Fort Wayne. So it's going all the time, and we get to see two miracles: lives changed before our very eyes, and teachers coming to us from all over the country that have a deep desire to do this. They're very much called.
And a second question was. Do you have families who, after being introduced to the program, what's your participation rate? Does everybody that hears about it and is introduced to it want to participate, or are there those who are, perhaps because of the faith-based component or some other aspect of the program, intimidated and don't want their kids to participate?
The faith-based piece doesn't mean a whole lot anymore, because here's what it is. This kid has been through everything, and usually in and out of the county lockup. Really, a lady said to me, look, sir, forget the faith-based piece. My kid can stand on his head and spit out nickels and sing songs to Muhammad. As far as I'm concerned, I don't really care. The bottom line is, this is the end of the line. I don't have any other choice. So I'm not going to start saying I don't want my kid to talk about God when this is the very end of the line and he's already been locked up and we don't have a lot of choices. They usually don't go there. They go, we don't even care what you do. Just make something work. So we don't have a lot of that coming to the door going, no, we're not going to do the faith-based piece. Now, what we do is we do every kid on a 10-day trial. So we get kids off the street that are 19 years old, and they're going, yeah, I want to go back to school. This is cool. There's a new school here, and so on. We call them in, and we start to introduce our high standards, 80% mastery on all your classes, A's and B's only, no C's, D's, and F's, or you'll do the work over. By the way, in order to pass ECA exams, we got to make sure you're mastering material. So why would I let you drool on my desk and get a D- and then fail the test? Okay, so we don't do that. So what we do is simply say the standard's really high. They come in and we test them for 10 days. Everybody's on a 10-day trial. And we tell them, we're going to watch your attendance, we're going to watch your attitude, your behavior, and your commitment. It is a privilege to come to the school, not a legal right. If you want to show us you're ready to work, and you're ready to work with us, and we're going to work with you, we're in. You got 10 days to prove it to us, and you're locked in. If you're not going to show it to us, we're going to bump you out and tell you to come back later, because right now you don't have the attitude to learn. So we're not going to, we take everybody, but if a kid comes in and he says, look, I hate this, and we go, look, there's a door. I mean, we can't make you drink. You're going to have to want to do this, because this is the end of the line. You're the last stop before the county lockup or the grave at this point. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And families, all I can tell you is if I could get you on the phone and I could do a conference call right now and say, would you talk to the moms and the dads, you would only hear crying. They would just weep. Because they just tell you, look, I don't understand it. My kid gets up now. He's excited about working. He's going to get a job. For the first time in his life, he's running with different friends. His whole life has changed. I don't understand it, but all I can tell you is I can't even explain to you what's happening. And seriously, we have superintendents that come in and meet with our kids, and the parents come in and we have them interviewed, and they just cry the whole time. It's pretty cool stuff.
So what are the ages that you take?
14 through 19. We'll take some 20-year-olds, but our friends at Excel like those kids. So, but if we have somebody that's 2 or 3 credits away and they're 20 years old, we're going to get them graduated with, by the way, with your diploma. Remember, these are your kids. It's your data, it's your diploma. Our goal is to increase your graduation rate. You have kids that are shoving up against the limit, they're not making it. We're going to increase your graduation rate. Our goal is to decrease your dropout rate. Our goal is to decrease the number of expulsions. You should never have an expulsion anymore. In a due process hearing, you can say sign Form 16 and go to that building over there, and it doesn't count as an expulsion, it's a transfer. So what we want to do is we really want to enhance your data, and that's our job. By the way, if we're not doing our job after 2 years, you send us down the road. We've only had that happen twice. One time because they hired our teachers and did our program, and that was great. We were happy about that. The other time was that we were not deep enough into the hood where our customers were supposed to be, and they wanted us in a little white flight area of town, and we said down there is where kids are killing each other, and there was a murder every week. And that's where we have our school.
Interesting.
Looks like you have Kokomo, South Bend, Anderson is what I saw, Marion.
Yeah, if you start across the top, it's we're working really hard to be in Gary next year, which is going to be a whole new league for us. But if you start in South Bend, where we started in Elkhart County, and you go across, you're at South Bend, Elkhart. Here's the interesting thing about the model. We have an urban and a rural model. So we can be in a one-stoplight town like Ligonier, Butler, Bern, Indiana, and then we can be downtown Indianapolis, South Bend, Fort Wayne, Anderson, Marion, Kokomo, and so on. So it's really interesting, but it doesn't matter where you go. There are struggling kids. So they're either little farm kids that beat each other up all the time and smoke a lot of weed behind a barn, or they're city kids that are shooting each other and they're gangbangers. So it doesn't matter. They're everywhere, and they need another alternative, and that's why we're so popular. We'll have well over 1,500 kids this year. Like I said, we're enrolling 25 kids across the state every week.
So I trust if we have further questions that Dr. Borff has a contact.
Absolutely, and I think did you receive a folder?
We did.
Okay, my phone number, I don't know, my phone number and Stan's phone number should be available to you. You can email any of us direct. You can go through Dr. Borff. It doesn't matter. We take these phone calls, and we'll be on the phone until 12 o'clock tonight, and so we'll be glad to entertain any phone calls. And we would challenge any of you as board members to go visit our schools. If you really want to see it and know what's going on, zip down the road and go to Anderson, go down to downtown Indy, zip around and go to Whiteland, to Greenwood area. Those are probably some of the closest schools, or you could go over to Kokomo, or you could go straight up to Bern on 27. So it's up to you, but we invite you at any time to sit in on a family time, to come in and visit our school, talk to our kids. They love it when you come in because they're the heroes. And they're going to smile and they're going to talk your ear off because they're so happy about the progress they're making. Now, let me not mislead you. Not all of our kids make it in our program. If a kid gets to a point where he has a major behavior issue, by the way, if you're a behavior issue and you say something inappropriate, you're going to go home, but you come back tomorrow morning with your parent. We don't do 5 days and 10 days. Why? Because they've already done through 25 days and 10 days in their life, and it doesn't work. So come back tomorrow with your parents. And the next thing we're going to do is, if you continue to do that, we're going to say, now you're out on what we call a 20-day sabbatical. Go home and log in and do your schoolwork at home. By the way, come to all of our activities. You're still on the basketball team. You can do all these other things with us because you're still a part of our family, but you're going to be isolated during the school time. And at the end of the quarter, or at the end of the 20 days, come back in a suit, make sure you're wearing a tie, and have a written plan as to why I should allow you back in my school. And you better be good. Because if you come in with an attitude, say, this place sucks, I really don't want to come back, and we go, buzz, buzzer's over, 20 days, see you next 20 days, until your attitude changes. It's a lot of fun, but standards are high. And you know what our kids need? High standards. Here's what it is. The higher the standard, and our standards are higher than they ever were in our public school. The higher the standard, the better I feel when I achieve it, the more successful I'm going to be. I cannot let our kids get this standard because they know they just whipped the system and got through. This means I really accomplished something big, and I'm proud of it, and I'm going to be successful. So feel free to contact us.
Thank you very
Okay?
much.
Thanks for the privilege. Very impressed with your school district, by the way.
Thank you.
Last time I was in this area, Lamar Lundy beat me up really bad on the basketball court. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marty. Lamar Jr.
Okay.
Didn't look that old.
Okay.
Yeah, Marty.
Anybody have any discussion? You want to have any discussion, or you want to take some time and process what we heard?
I process it.
Process.
Okay. Okay, we're ready to move on then.
I'm going to call on Mr. Tidrow to bring you up to date on where we are in our conversation within the district on digital conversion. This will set the tone for further conversations that this board will have perhaps as early as next Wednesday evening.
All right, thank you, Dr. Borthus. Good segue from just informational. I laid a couple items in front of you at your desk. You have not seen that before tonight. And so we're just using this as a time for some information. I don't expect you to understand everything, but when we're talking about digital conversion, we're talking about really a pathway to that digital conversion that we want to hit at the end, where all students are engaged and using our tools appropriately. And I wanted to stand in front of you today, just maybe a preface for next week's board retreat, where you are going to talk about some of your goals and enhance your goals, and we're going to talk about some technology pieces or e-learning. And I hope this can be a prelude to that can help some more conversation. When we look at the digital conversion pathway, and we will see a lot more detail next week, there's three main components, and the first one that a lot of time comes up is the funding, and I'm going to talk about that in a few seconds. The second one is the technology and the support, and the technology, and that's kind of the hardware, the software, that piece of maybe the device that we're talking about, the support that's needed for this to be successful. And finally is that classroom impact, or that e-learning or tech ed piece, if you will, where our teachers are trained, our teachers are on board, our administrators and so forth, on how to integrate this tool and these digital devices as part of their curriculum. But what you have in front of you here is a breakdown of our one-to-one costs as we see it right now. And I'm going to also say that this is new to Mrs. Scalf as well. We talked about it just last night on the totals. We've been talking about it for some time. Mr. Coddington and I went through it as well a year and a half ago. But we wanted to put together a piece here that showed you a total package. That way we're not talking about these other numbers, 2s and 3s, that I mentioned before, and we don't know what the total package. So I'm just going to throw it out there and say that total package is about $4.2 million. And that's a lot of money. We know that. And it's a lot of money that we don't have. We don't have that laying around. Otherwise, I think the board would say, get this done. So 4.2 is a lot of money. But one thing about this board that we should be impressed by is you're not afraid to have those crucial or those critical conversations. Doesn't mean you always agree with me or always agree with us, but you're not afraid to have those conversations at least and bring it to the fore and talk about it and discuss it. What we've done here is we put together all the numbers we felt have been brought up in our maybe technology committee meetings, our 21st century meetings, and ad hoc meetings, our cabinets, other conversations we've had. And when we get questioned, maybe it's, are the iPads, we're going to suggest maybe having iPads in the lower grades. Will they have keyboards? Yes. We throw that in as a line here so you can see that we are considering that. What kind of devices are we talking about? Well, after we've talked to the teachers, after we've talked to students, after we talk to people around other tables, we think we can put maybe iPad minis in some of the lower grades. We can use iPad Airs at that, where we have their 3rd and 4th grade. And then as we go into our middle school and high school, we think, and what we've talked about, we believe, the laptop is the best choice. That has everything that the teachers need, the student needs, and these are items that as they come through our system, and part of our job is just what he was talking about, prepare them for that workforce as they come through. That one device will help them get everything, most everything they need as they go through and be successful in high school. And we know that as we look around at our pockets of one-to-one, as I call them, in our district. Over at the high school, our science department is using laptops for their curriculum. We have some iPads for our early college. We have carts and so forth throughout the district of iPads and laptops. We've also thrown in there cost of a support person that could be on board for a couple of years. Another key part of this, and this is that number 3 on our first slide, is that component of teacher support and preparing them. Over toward the far column, we put in there professional development. And that's a hefty price tag, but that number of $600,000 gives us 5 days of professional development for all of our teachers. So we think that's a critical need, and we've seen that already with our commitment from our tech integration specialists, our e-learning specialists that you brought on board this summer, as well as how we've integrated those key digital components that Mr. Millis, Dr. Parker have introduced at the curriculum level, and using their coaches to help broaden that scope. So the next page is a graphical representation of what we're going to get into more detail next week as well. But what we wanted to show here is you just kind of follow the colors. And we start at the top right. We would say, let's go ahead and get all of our high school with a device. So 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th graders on that first year, and we say let's start in 2015. That doesn't mean we have to start August 2015. It might mean by the end of trimester 1 we've had those devices starting going out to our students. But as you can see, our 9th grade through 12th grade would have the new devices, and we could repurpose some devices back down to our lower grades, whether they're iPads, maybe laptop carts. But if you take that 12th grader, he's a senior, she's a senior, she's going to have that device for half a year, 3/4 of a year. That's got more, that still has life on it. We're not going to obsolete it. We're not going to throw it back out of service. So what you do is you just say, okay, that 12th grader, they're going to turn it in, and those incoming 9th graders the next year, if you follow the blue there, they would pick up that and carry it on for 3 more years. Maybe their senior year then they would pick up a brand new device. So we just put that together to show that those first couple of years, those devices are going to be reused by 2 cohorts, really. And so I think it's critical to have that kind of a plan. We've seen that with other school districts where they say, we're going to get at least 4 years out of these devices, and we have to recycle them back in. And then at the end of that term, some school districts, they've used them for 4 years and said, hey, wait a second, we can use another 5th year on this. It just depends on how well they've been taken care of, what kind of components are in there, so that might extend that dollar out a little bit more. Or they say, wait a second, we can pull those in and maybe use those for a loaner type situation, maybe for community involvement, or maybe sell them to the student or have them take them when they leave or graduate. So those are all options that when we get to that point, I think we can set up a plan there. But this allows us to kind of look and see that we're thinking ahead. We've investigated several different school districts that have gone one-to-one, or parts of their schools have gone one-to-one. Maybe it's just one school, or if you look at, say, Madison Grant, Yorktown, Plymouth, they've gone one-to-one for the entire school district, and these are kind of the pathways they've taken to get there. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time up here with detail, but we just wanted to show you a couple things. One, we got to be honest and say that $4.2 million is what we believe is what it's going to take to get us there. We've also had questions about, of that 4.2, can anything come from within? Do we have some of the CPF that we currently can move that way, or do we have anything in title? Do we have anything in other sources? And I think we have to be honest. I mean, Dr. Parker's shaking her head. No, I mean, the way they've redesigned title and the way they want title, and we don't have title over at the high school, we can't use those dollars. When you look at what's happened to our CPF dollars, We have $650,000 in our budget that's for technology. 300 of that's from our CPF, 350 is from that tech bond, and a total of 650. And I can sit here and tell you that we can do money saving options and so forth, but day one, January 1st of every year, between our commitments for the year, software, hardware commitments, licensing, we've already committed about 85 to 90% of that dollar for that entire year, of those dollars for that year, including those initiatives that we brought to you about 5 years ago when we had some money pulled in from rainy day. So we've committed that. We have to have dollars there for in that CPF and in that technology budget to do things like upgrades to our Wi-Fi that we're currently doing, to look at maybe new phone systems, and they're not cheap. But those are things that would have to come out of that line, and we've looked at the numbers. Karen and I, when Bob is here, we looked at. We don't think we could take half of that budget and move it over and use it for this one-to-one initiative. So I think at this point we just have to be honest and just throw that out there. But that's what I wanted to bring to you tonight. Just informational, and as you guys go into your board retreat and look at how we can have impact on our student and achievement, and student engagement, how that can improve your board goals and so forth. So I'll leave it at that, but I'm open to any questions. So,
based on this chart that you have up here, are you then proposing 5th through 12th take their devices home, and pre-K through 4th keep their devices in the school?
That's part of that detail you'll hear next week. But no, what we've talked about is it's really a we believe, after looking at different school systems that have been successful, not so successful, we think we need to leave them in the classroom for a while until we all get comfortable with that device, and that there's reason to take it home. You know, there may not be reason, but we do know they need it in the classroom when they're doing that work that Mr. Miller showed last week on the new curriculum. I also like to call it fielder's choice. If that teacher needs that device to be taken home by X number of students, then they should work that out with their building administrator, with the technology department, with the curriculum people. We're not going to hold them back as a tech department and say, no, you can't take it home. But we're going to support them to have them in the classroom as carts and so forth. So, and that's just kind of what we've seen across the other districts we've seen. Yes?
One of the questions I have is, do you feel that you have the staff that would support this kind of a plan?
Yes.
You have the needed people that are going to be able to troubleshoot and
part of this
prepare.
plan includes, upgrade or adding a person, 2 people. So we, after that, we think we do, yes. Currently, no. I mean, that's half of our technology staff that goes out into the buildings. You know, so we would need more as we add another 5,000 devices. You're right.
So are you thinking about how you're going to make your staff readily available to people in buildings? I mean, there's nothing more frustrating than to want to be able to utilize technology and there are problems and your plans
right
are out the window because you don't,
it's not working.
you don't have the support that you need to be able to troubleshoot or whatever. Especially, I would say, at the very beginning when teachers are just getting acclimated and so forth. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm really interested in that part.
One of the options, or one of the things that we've seen and we've done is for internships is you use student support. We would have students maybe at the high school that could do that first level of replacements. I mean, other school districts have students replace screens and keyboards, maybe reload software, And a lot of that is just time. That's time-consuming tasks that they could do that could offload some of those higher-level tasks that are
Okay, I
through
get that,
technicians.
but I'm in my classroom, I have everything all set up, ready to go.
Right.
And it's not working.
Right.
So then what do I do?
Well, well, then you call the tech department. That's a reality that these school districts have dealt with, and sometimes it is having those students that can respond to those classrooms.
So you're not thinking of placing a person in each of our schools to assist with that kind of thing?
Well, we currently have what we call tech consultants, which are teacher level ECA, and they handle that first level.
Assigned to a classroom.
Right, they're assigned to a classroom. We're also expanding the role, or expanding some of the knowledge base of our media specialists that are in the buildings, that they handle more of that support role as well. So, and yes,
That's probably one of the things I'm going to be still questioning when we meet next week, because I think that is it's a deal breaker if teachers, if they can't quickly get their problems addressed.
A lot of times, too, since these will be in the hands of the students, it is up to them also to make sure that they're ready to be used, and they can also.
Well, I'm talking about a kindergarten or a second grade student.
Oh, right.
You know, I know that as the students get older, and they're very capable of troubleshooting and problem solving and.
What we like about the carded situation is we have very limited breakage on those. If the teacher, if it's inside her classroom, she monitors it, she does inventory. We have very few problems with those devices when they stay kind of current or inside. And we've already tasked the building librarians to take care of updating the apps, to updating the software on those devices now. But you're right. We also go out and we tell them always have a backup plan. If something doesn't go right, maybe that backup plan is, instead of having two devices, we share one for that time period until we get it fixed. Or if the electricity goes out, then you've got to do something different anyway. But you're exactly right. We need more support on the field. And what we imagine is by maybe as early as 2017, 18. We're going to be doing away with a lot of our labs if the assessment part can be done with the mobile devices, so that money that we spend for upgrading those labs plus the time we spend supporting those labs will go down, because they won't be in the buildings anymore. So more time can be spent on the individual devices. So yes.
How did you come up with 5 days of professional development?
Well, that's a week, and that was something that Mr. Shamel came up with as a past teacher. We would love to do 10 days. We would love to do 20, but we felt that that's 40 hours. That's a full week, and that could be spread out over multiple days, of course. But when we have this type of new model, we want to get them in and support them and get them be successful right away. So.
Well, I'll have to say that at our district-wide parent meeting that we had this last week, one of the comments because Dr. Borf had shared with the parents the technology, where we were going with technology, just gave them a brief overview. And one of the parents talked about that he felt it most important that teachers be very knowledgeable about whatever device is being utilized by them, because if they aren't knowledgeable, then the kids obviously aren't going to get the most out of the devices.
Right.
So that's something that was emphatically spoken about So
That's one good reason to, when you look at a laptop, you have several different choices. You have a Chromebook, which is Google-based. You have Macintosh. You have Windows-based. And we're looking more towards that Windows-based because right now we are Windows corporations. So all of our teachers, support, staff, administrators, we use Windows. We have Windows on our laptops in here, for example. So a lot of those skills that they've learned throughout the years, they can just use again as they help the students. We also invested in iPads for all of our teachers. And even though you see, okay, we have some of those grades, the students wouldn't have iPads. What they've learned is how to be mobile in the classroom, how to be mobile people as they go from building to building. I don't know if he's got one of our iPads, but Mr. Eckert has one right now, and he's using it. We've seen Mrs. Gibbs use hers as she's up here. So
he's actually taking pictures of you.
The good side, right? So, we've invested in that, and so they know how to answer some of those questions on just the mobility aspect and so forth. But yeah, yes, you're correct. That learning phase has been going on and it's continuing. Just today, starting today, the next 2 days as well, is a big conference in Indianapolis called the HEC Conference. It's for computer coordinators, but it has thousands of people there. And what we've seen, the trend over the last 2 or 3 years, is that before it was a giant geek fest. It was your technology people. Then you saw administrators go there. Now you're seeing a swing where you have a lot more teachers and ed tech people there, which is real nice because that's where these tools are leading us into that educational technology is that they're the ones on the ground that are there day to day and maybe have to solve those problems, those quick and easy ones. We have, myself, we have a few of our tech people there. We also have our e-learning specialists that are attending those 3 days. We have Jane Monroe from Fairview there. We have Jody Marcy, she's there. So we're getting representation, and that's a giant conference. Jim Magoski and myself tomorrow will be having an all-day workshop on what your students know that you don't. It's a packed house. We'll be talking about different pieces of how students maybe try to get around things, but also how we can benefit from those students from their knowledge. And we're teaming up with the McConaughey School District. So it's so important to continue that education. And a lot of times we say technology is obsolete when it goes off the showroom floor, but the skills you learn, we can continue those. You may have to maybe learn where that button is now or this one, but at least you've learned that core piece and you've gotten comfortable with it. I remember when we put the smart boards in, there was a lot of hesitation on, well, I'm a little nervous about using this. My kids might know more about it. I'm not sure. We trained them, then we said, go in there, shut the door. Go in there when you have an hour or half an hour, shut the door and do a little rehearsal time with yourself so that you know how to use these and can get around some issues. So, but
okay, Jeff?
As I start to think towards next week where all of our information will come out, I guess I would be interested in and maybe this information will come, but most of the equipment or technology, laptops, the iPads, that type of stuff, most of our curriculum is it going to be based off of our servers and in the cloud? Or how I'm kind of interested in how that interaction is and if our curriculum is in line with what we're going to do on our plan, because I think we're talking a lot, we're going to be, I think the support that we would need from people would be different if we're talking about going into a cloud-based system being housed and that software being updated by a third party versus us doing it in our own networks. And
right.
I think the level of use will become more simplistic. So is that information kind of going to parallel what we're going to receive next week?
I can tell you that most of what we purchased assessment-wise and curriculum-wise is web-based, so we don't put it on our servers and maintain it.
So most of that will be coming off of our servers then.
Right, so there's three different models of support there. One is if it's something on that side yes, we can ring them up and get support on them. We have internal support that have to handle maybe that user level data entry and so forth. And then there's that administration side where we have to decide how we're going to use that software. We being people like Dr. Parker and so forth who put that curriculum in place. So even though it is cloud-based, we still have some interaction there. But you're right, we don't have to worry about if there's a new upgrade, putting in a new server, for example.
Well, I think that
So,
makes a difference
yes.
if 80% of our problems will become connectivity versus processing. That's a big difference.
That's a great point. We would love, we have to get out of the business of controlling those files and so forth and be in the business of making sure that connectivity is consistent, strong, and reliable. And, you know, right now, all of our files are stored locally. For example, all of our student files, all of our staff files and teachers. And, you know, we're going to introduce a model next week that will show you how we're going to shave off 2/3 of that and put it up in that cloud. So it is a different format. And part of our assessment of the devices and the route we're going is based on the software and systems that we've already invested in. You know, Success Maker, the McGraw-Hill stuff, and things like that. And we have a huge investment there, and we want to make sure that's consistent. So,
Well, that'll make our devices easier because then we'll be limited to, a lot of our areas will be limited in items that would need a lot of processing, like architectural or that type of.
Correct.
We won't have a lot.
yes,
It'll be a lot easier.
Yes, there's some areas that we're not going to put on a laptop or an iPad. We got to have 3D imaging put on high-end
Which
workstations.
should extend the use of some of the devices.
That's right.
I think Susie had a question.
Susie?
Yes, I'm just assuming, with my fingers and toes all crossed, that we wouldn't even be having this conversation if someone didn't have an idea where $4.2 million is.
Well,
Well, you know,
Rob,
I've been reading about
now please.
federal grants and things
There-
that are available, and
This is
The purpose of tonight
I don't
is
want to
to
have, I
provide,
just want the reassurance that my assumption is correct.
So
I
I'm not
don't
gonna
need
answer
to know
that,
what
Dr.
it
Wolf.
is.
your questions are great. Rob's trying to answer it all. And he's not going to be able to answer all your questions
Right.
tonight. That is an excellent question that we've been asking ourselves.
Right.
What tonight was all about was to present to you some information that we knew we needed to present before the retreat, because it's too much to absorb in one night. We've already heard how one piece of information that we presented tonight is a little overwhelming, and this can be. So we wanted to give you some options, or an opportunity at least, to look at this and see that we know that it's possible, and we are prepared next week when we talk about this in retreat. And remember, the purpose of the retreat is not to present a technology plan,
right.
but it is to talk about how we can engage students more deeply to support the goals you have. Rob and his people are going to be there, and they are going to be trying to answer more questions, but you also need to know that they've structured their thinking a little bit. So, not a little bit, a lot. Rob could go on all night here, trying to answer all the questions that you have, and we appreciate that.
Saved by the superintendent.
Yes, I appreciate that. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next discussion is on school grades. And Dr. Parker, would you like to make sure that they saw one of the grades today?
Yes, I'm wondering how many of you saw the banners that have been placed on the tower at the high school
Awesome.
in celebration of our high school becoming an A-rated school. So I will open with that. It's a goal that was set by
Look
Ray
at Mrs.
Wolpe.
Wolpe back there, just as proud as can be.
As well she should be. I mean, it was a goal, that it was a stated goal. We want to be an A school. We're going to be an A school, and we are an A school. And I'm going to further add, we're the only A school in Wayne County, the only A high school in Wayne County. And also, we're at the top of the NCC,
Oh, nice.
our high school
Oh,
grade.
that's
So,
great.
yeah, it's happy days are here again.
Yes.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the grades. I provided in your packet an actual copy of the school grade for each of the schools. And we have 3 of our elementary schools, Charles, Fairview, and Westview, who are A-rated schools. Crestdale earned a B. Our 2 intermediate schools also earned Bs, Dennis and Test, and you'll recall that Test was at a D last year, so the B was a nice jump for them, and of course our high school was an A. We do have 2 elementary schools that received a grade of D, and I will talk a little bit about that. And as a district, we also received a B. So those are the grades such as they stand. If you look at the individual grades and how those were calculated, you'll remember that the state has created this formula that looks at achievement. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at all of our students combined. What is our achievement level? And so we are awarded points based on that. So if you are at 90%, then you get 4 points. If you're at 80, you get 3 points. And so we get a baseline score just based on how our kids are achieving. And so a lot of our schools, for instance, Charles, they landed right in the A just based on their overall achievement. And so they were able to earn some bonus points as well, but even in the absence of those bonus points for growth, they would have been in the A range. So we have some schools like that, and then we have some schools that their achievement's not quite where we would hope it would be, but they targeted certain subgroups of kids and they earned bonus points for growth. And so I want to talk a little bit about that growth model. I know we talked about it when it first was introduced. We talked about it last year. I'm still talking about the growth model because sometimes it helps us. Sometimes we love the growth model. It brings our lower achieving scores or schools up because the kids are showing the growth that they need to show, but sometimes it kicks us, in the pants. And this year, particularly at Elizabeth Starr Academy, it kicked us in the pants. And let me tell you why. We created schools that are K-4 schools. Growth is calculated from 3rd grade to 4th grade. We have 1 cohort of students in each of our schools for whom growth is calculated. At Elizabeth Starr Academy, that's 40 students. 40 students determine whether we earn 2 bonus points in English language arts or math. The other thing is we break it into subgroups, and so we break it into our bottom 25% and our top 75%. So we had 10 kids in our bottom 25%. 42.7% of the students must show high growth in order to earn the bonus point. At Elizabeth Starr Academy, if 1 more student in that group of 10 students had demonstrated high growth, they would have been awarded a bonus point, and they wouldn't have been a D school. Happened to them in math as well. So it's really a very tight window for how those grades are calculated. And so I'm not making excuses. We don't want to be a D school, but we don't know ahead of time what the mark is going to be for each of those students to demonstrate high growth. You'll remember we talked about they take those kids, they put them in a cohort with all the other kids who earned that same score last year, and then they test them again, and then they look at their scores, force fit them into that normal bell curve, and the kids in the middle get to be called typical growth, the kids at the upper end get to be called high growth, and the kids down here are low growth. And I also brought you some examples of that. We have kids who actually lost points in their I-STEP score, lost points who are high growth because they just happened to be in a group of kids who all had really low growth. And we had kids who made 40-point gains and they're low growth. It's based on that group of kids that they got clumped together with. So I can tell you, if you looked at the scores very carefully, you probably know what I know. For instance, Fairview. Fairview earned bonus points for the lowest 25% of their kids in both English language arts and math, and that was by design. They said, we're going for the low-hanging fruit here. We know who these kids are, we know where we need to get them, and we're going to get those bonus points. And they got them, and they earned their grade of A, even though their achievement scores aren't at the 90% level. So what our schools are doing and what they're required to do, if they're a D school, is to look at their data and to identify their priority areas of interest, okay? And that's where they need to really focus their effort. We don't have any schools that were F schools, which are the priority schools in the state of Indiana, which would require the public hearing and the public input. So Mark Millis and I went to a meeting to learn about what are the consequences of being a D school, and I can quote to you when I say to you that the DOE says it's very minimal what we're requiring of our D schools. We will have to look at our data, we'll have to look at our priority areas of interest, we'll have to incorporate at least one of the turnaround model principles into our plan, and they just build them into their school improvement plans. and the state will come and monitor one time during the school year. So there's not a lot of interest from the DOE in terms of being a D school. There's a lot of interest from our office in terms of our D schools. And so we've already talked with the principals. We're helping them to develop these school achievement plans or student achievement plans that they have to develop. But if you looked at Vail, for instance, we know that they really need to concentrate on math, because math is what really hurt them this year, because they had low achievement and low growth across the board in math. And so math is an obvious area to focus on at Vail. At Elizabeth Star Academy, I think they're going to kind of follow the lead of Fairview and say we're going to focus on this bottom 25% because we are so close. The other thing you need to remember is, because it's only 3rd grade to 4th grade, they never get to have a second chance with those kids. They go from 4th grade, they move on to the intermediate schools, and that's where their growth is calculated. And so they only can take that one group of 3rd graders that they have and make a plan to move them on. So they don't ever get a second chance with those 4th graders. So those are the grades, and those are the plans.
Should be noted that the corporation went up a letter grade
Yes.
from last year.
Yes. On the strength of the high school.
And it's a boost for the whole community. I feel that our school system is in such good shape, or that we got such good grades. I think it helps the morale everywhere.
Yes, absolutely.
It reflects well on our community.
And I think it sets an example for the students that we set a goal and we accomplished that goal. A lot of celebration.
I have, as I was looking through the report cards and things before this evening, it seemed to me, and I didn't actually write it all down, so I could be off a little bit, but just by my first impression reading through it, it seemed to me that math was perhaps the challenge in several of our buildings. And and I am familiar with a lot of the efforts that have gone into updating the math curriculum and through the textbook adoption and all of the efforts with the Common Core and everything that, of course, are no longer necessary. But I will be anxious to hear plans.
Well, I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to let Mr. Millis kind of chime in as well. I can tell you there's a lot to keep your eye on. And so we look at our school improvement plans, and we really are going to focus on English language arts and writing. And then, math.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a part of the issue.
I hear the problem. I hear the challenge.
The second thing is that we reintroduced science into our curriculum in the last couple years, and the math focus there. The new math materials that we're using, we've really looked at those in terms of alignment with the standards. And so there's been a greater focus for this coming year on ensuring that the standards are really covered in depth. Our goals for math facts fluency, we're really pushing those this year. One thing we know is that fluency in math is similar to fluency in reading. Is if our kids aren't comfortable and they don't know those with some automaticity, they're spending way too much time doing the actual calculations, and the thought processes behind those then suffer. So we've also looked at our curriculum, and one thing we did last year is that the materials that we brought in introduced problem solving, but they introduced them at some grade levels, for one problem, there might be 8 to 10 ways to approach that problem, and that is a Common Core way of teaching. And so our teachers said, we're afraid we might be overwhelming our kids. Can we just bring it down to the simple 6? And so that's what we focused on last year. And so what we're kind of reviewing now is, did we oversimplify? Because even though we're not a Common Core state, our items are Common Core on our assessments, and they're going to be approached from that Common Core perspective of, it's not what the answer is to the problem, it's how did you get the answer, and if you hadn't gotten it that way, what are 4 other ways you might have come up with that answer. So it's kind of impacting the way that we are instructing our kids.
I think what Dr. Parker is suggesting is that we've been looking at it, and there's multiple angles to look at this, but I we had this conversation with Sam Thomas, and he is our math and science coach, and also was instrumental at Dennis in analyzing their scores when they were a low grade and making those improvements, and a lot of those were in the math area. So I threw that question at him very early in the year, and we've had discussions, and he's continuing to analyze that. And I think he has some thoughts about that. I'm not sure it's something we turn a light on. One thing that we did do was we responded with our curriculum, and I know you piloted Pearson Common Core before even the Common Core was going to be adopted. They were talking about it. So when they did adopt it and were phasing that in, we felt we were in a good position, and our material supported that. However, we were still teaching the Indiana standards, and so we had to kind of do a crosswalk, continue to focus on that and that. Well, so now we're still kind of at the same place, but we feel like we're in a better position because we think these standards will stick for a while, and they will be very similar to many of the Common Core items that we've seen. But we're working on that, and I think Sam will be working on a plan.
And I'm going to just lay this out there because you know that we will have a different I-STEP this spring. So the I-STEP that we'll take this spring will be new, and the I-STEP that we'll take the following spring will be new. So we'll have 3 years in a row of 3 different measures, and the state's going to go ahead and calculate grades on those. But my feeling is that, number one, the grades will be very late in arriving next year. I just don't anticipate that they'll have the metrics figured out to get those out to us in any time, in any kind of timely manner. The other thing is that the assessment items are going to be markedly different this spring, and I don't know if any of you have had a chance to go to the DOE website and spend a little time looking at those the college and career readiness assessment items, but I will tell you that we have a leader that was asked to do so, and he said that they're just too long. And I think our kids are going to, we're doing all we can to prepare them for them. We're creating these interim assessments where they're being asked to read long passages and do all these technology-enhanced items, but it's going to look nothing like the tests that they've had. So I think across the state, we're going to see a real drop in performance on I-STEP.
Well, I think it's important to bring that up because the DOE Deputy Superintendent just a couple weeks ago said the same thing, and she said that the DOE is going on a proactive attempt to alert people around the state that there will be they're expecting a significant impact, and that's not necessarily a positive term, on the results. And it's not that students are less capable, it's just that the tests are different, the expectations are going to be different, and it's not necessarily the kind of test that all students might have been prepared for. That was echoed today at the legislative chamber update that happened around lunchtime. There were 2 representatives from the state chamber, and one of the comments made was that in the area of education, they are expecting some of the I-STEP results to be very challenging to the state, and they're trying to prepare businesses and the movers and shakers throughout the communities in Indiana to prepare themselves for that, because it's not representing students who aren't capable. It's representing a change in the process and a change in measurement. And New York experienced this, Kentucky has experienced this as they move towards a different type of curriculum and then assessment. So what Dr. Parker's talking about is probably something you're going to hear more and more about as this rollout of preparation takes place.
And I would invite you to visit the website and just scroll through some of those technology enhanced or those new test items, because the passages are really long, and in some cases they're nonfiction and they're not very captivating for our students, and they're being asked to read those, they're being asked to answer questions and then go back into the passage and cite the textual evidence by highlighting it. It may say something like, go back to sentence 22, because the sentences are numbered on the side. And even that alone is a huge change for kids, because our kids, when they see a number, they think it's a question. You know? So there's so many things that are just test-taking skills for these newer types of assessments that we're going to have to teach in addition to the content that I know our teachers are overwhelmed because we did training this week on some of these, and we actually had a principal near tears because she could only get, I think, a 93% on the third grade math test. So they're challenging.
I think it's good that we're having the conversation. I think we need to have a lot of conversation about it because as complex as it sounds, if we're going to have all these different testing measurements over the next 3 years, it's going to be difficult for us.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody else have any questions then before we would move on? Well, I think the next item on the agenda then will be Garrison Elementary.
The Garrison Elementary building has been vacant now for a number of years, and the future of the building was discussed at the last board meeting. It's actually been discussed a few times at board meetings. It was taken to the Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee met yesterday, and we talked about some options. Mrs. Scalf is going to present to you some of the options that we discussed, and perhaps there will be some obvious options, others not so, but we need to be moving forward on the future of that building, so I turn it over to her.
Good evening. Yesterday, the Finance Committee met and had a pretty thorough conversation regarding the Garrison property, and if you have not attended a Finance Committee meeting, I invite you. It's a good chance for questions to be asked and answered, and it does provide some space for everyone to be able to ask questions and go forward on things. So the review that I have for you tonight is very simplistic, and it's simply going to offer you everything that we talked about in Finance Committee so that you can further discussions from this point on. The minimum annual operating costs, as we've reviewed before, are around $66,000 for the Garrison property. That is minimal. That's usually if nothing goes wrong. The appraisal values that we've seen prior to tonight show that with the current structure in place, we have a value of $32,900, and if we were to remove the structure, the land value would then go to $57,000. The committee yesterday found that we have two issues involving the property, and one being the cabin, and then a separate issue being the school building, and they are interrelated, but it was a conversation that continued to say the cabin is really something on its own that the board wants to look at as far as the future. Do we want to keep it? Do we want to move it with the property? So the options that we talked about on the cabin are to, one, put out a request for proposal to remove the cabin from the site and to relocate it to another RCS site. There were two sites mentioned as possibilities for sure, and a third that possibly could be, and those were Charles and Crestdale. We also discussed that we could put out a request for a bid on the cabin as a separate structure in and of itself if we wanted to sell the structure on its own, regardless of the other building. Then there's also the option to keep it on the site and move it with the building with whatever decision we take on that. The next is the school building itself and the property at large. The options for that include to bid the property out with restrictions in regards to the cabin, and those restrictions can be whatever the board makes them. It can be with the option for the board to relocate. It can be with a timing that if no interest or the financing is too high to move that, the cabin would go with the property. All of those are options we can write into the bid. The other thing is to bid out the property for sale as is with all structures. The other is to raise the school building structure, or and that is separate of the parking lot, leave the parking lot alone. We can raise the structure and the parking lot, or we could continue maintenance on the property that is where the committee left it to bring to you for further discussion. So if you have any questions on that, feel free to ask. But tonight I'm going to open up an invitation for the board to discuss the future of the Gerson property, however they would like to continue discussion.
Well, with the meeting the way it took off yesterday, I think one of the things that came across that we all agreed on is it is bleeding money away from us yearly. I think we need to figure out what's the best way for us as a school corporation to get rid of something that's going to cost us, in my opinion, more than $66,000 as time goes on, especially if we ever have any trouble out there.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very, very fortunate. So I know Kelly was at the meeting yesterday. So I guess really, I don't know if you have any questions right now, Susan, that you...
Not right now, no. But thank you for asking.
We talked about going ahead and getting bids on the cabin to be moved, and I think
I thought
hopefully
we did
we'll...
that at some point.
Yeah, we
Or at
did.
least estimates, I think. Thought
Right,
we had some estimates
right.
on
We
it.
do have some estimates that are a couple or more years old.
Yeah, so they would be pretty dated. I
So we need to
Yeah.
get some firm estimates before we can place it on the market, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that Mr. Tidrow brought up yesterday that was news to me, it was interesting, is he talked about that he was talking to some people that were involved when the cabin was originally moved to the site. And there was some question about just how original that whole building itself, the whole cabin is itself. So I think we're... Go ahead.
Can I update that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did some research on that, and several other people had heard that, but we went back to one of the original people who put it there, John Hamilton, part of the maintenance, and they installed new windows. We have new windows there. We replaced 2 of the logs at the front of the south elevation, and of course we do. Ron, what's the
Chinking.
the chinking? Right. We replace that every year because you have to do that anyway, right? And we reinforce support on the first floor. But I have to stand corrected. It seems like the rest of the structure is authentic. So, but several of us had heard that it was not. So that's why I threw it out. But we did some research, and so I wanted to put that.
Well, that's
out there.
good. That's good that
Yes, it
information
is.
came out.
It is more authentic than what several had thought
When
or had heard. So.
When we looked at moving it a couple years ago, did they go out and look at the structure to make sure it can be moved safely and put back together?
I think, well, I think you just asked 2 different things, because moving it would be one thing, and I don't know that they looked at moving it. They looked at taking it apart and then putting it back together.
Which is more.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. And
I
Ron,
had
do you
my-
have any,
That's really the only way they can move it now.
To take it apart. Okay.
why can't it be moved like it had been?
Hey, Ron.
Because they felt that there would be too much damage to the building, and they would have to rework it anyway.
Okay.
And they talked to a couple of Amish carpenters, and they explained how they could tear it down and put it back and so forth.
Sounds like the safer way. I had a visual of
Yeah.
the log cabin going down New Warner Road.
They can leave it alone.
Yeah, there's a lot more restrictions now. It just kind of showed up out there when they moved it the first time, so. Yeah.
But I think one of the things that came up yesterday when we were talking about, I was stuck in the beginning on, do we need to make a decision on what to do with the cabin before we made a decision on what we want to do with the property?
Mhm.
And Mr. Cross brought up the fact that, well, wait a minute, if we want to go ahead and proceed with the process of putting the building up or the site up for sale, that we could draft restrictions or document such a way that gives us time to deal with what we're going to do with the cabin, whether we can fundraise or get donations or whatever. We could put the property up for sale and say, whoever is the person who is, that would buy the property, we would have some time frame, 1 year or 2 years or whatever, to make some determination on what we will do with the cabin then. And then, at that time, like Karen said earlier, it could either default back to the original property owner, or the new property owner, or then we could have the right to move it. And
Is there any way to legally gauge people's, whether there's interest out there with structure or without structure? Is there a way to see if there's any interest, rather than raising the building and then finding out, 'cause my first thought was get rid of the building, it's worth more without it. Is there any way to put it out there and say, is there interest in this property?
I thought there was.
With
Did I
the bu-
misunderstand
Well,
that?
it's come and gone.
Oh, okay.
We don't know whether it's with the building or without.
Or if it's even still there, probably.
So is your thought that we would not want to advertise it for sale to see what the interest is?
That's
to
what I
see
don't
where
know.
that
Is
would
that
go?
the way to go? Is it where you officially list it for sale? Because,
That's why we wanted to have this
yeah, my thought
this
is if you list it for
conversation.
sale with the building, with the structures in place, and then you find out it was.
Why can't we start
should've done it
there? I
without.
mean, what's it going to hurt to start there?
Can you do a couple different
Down is what you're
options?
saying?
And then if there's no interest
Or if the offers are too low or whatever, is that what you're
with the
thinking?
building, then maybe at that time we decide that we need to tear the building down and
well, there is another option too, donation. I mean, that was another option that we have. The appraisal came in with a donation value that could approach 50,000, I think. Was that right?
Was that donation of the cabin, the building?
As is.
As is.
That was a
Well, I don't
donation.
think the
as is.
concept was that RCS would donate it. I think the concept was that
For a donation of.
that if it were an eligible donation that could carry that value, I mean, what's the benefit for RCS to do a tax-deductible donation when then we don't pay taxes?
Right. It wasn't really a cash.
It was
A cash
another
exchange.
it
It
was
was a
another
tax
insight
credit.
into the overall value of the structure as is,
Right.
and basically saying that under any circumstance, the appraiser did not see the value being more than $50,000.
And there
And
were
I'm s-
restrictions on that as well. I mean, the type of
Entity.
entity that could benefit from that.
I'm sorry, I had to step out, and so I might have missed this, so if you've already discussed this, then I apologize ahead of time. But one of the things that we talked about yesterday in the committee was that as long as we just leave it as it is, it's costing us a lot of money.
Right.
And so we are on kind of a tight timeline here as far as moving forward as soon as we possibly can so that we aren't spending the money that we're spending on that
Well,
property.
it sounds like we need to just get it out there, because it doesn't make any sense to spend money to take buildings down either.
Well, and it doesn't stop someone from making an offer and changing it to say they just want the building, they don't want the cabin, they just want, I mean, they can make an offer that way, and then we have to look at it. But probably we should put the full thing up there.
But we're going to make, I understood that we would make a stipulation about the cabin.
Right.
In the,
Right. Right.
Well, maybe I'm just not, I guess I'm maybe sort of naive about real estate, but it would seem to me this has been a fairly public discussion, and I don't believe, at least I'm unaware of anyone coming forward saying, well, if you decide to sell it, please be sure to call me.
I've heard a couple.
I've received,
We
I've
have
s-
had
received
interest.
several.
Oh, okay.
We
Well,
do-
then that
yeah,
makes
we
me
do
feel
have some
better.
inquiries.
And so, in that case,
Questions.
it would make some sense to go ahead and list it and see what happens, and we have like Plan B, C, and D to fall back on.
Ron, do you know if we list it,
I'm not sure what you mean by listed. Okay, you got me confused there.
or, well, if we, whatever we have to
Open
do
it
to
up
put
for
it up for
bids.
sale?
Yeah, I mean, we can't just, it's not like you can list your house with a realtor for sale and go on with that process. We have a certain process we have to follow. The board has to, make a finding that it's the property's not needed for educational purposes, and then direct that the
So
administration.
can you walk us through that process?
Then you direct the administration cause 2 appraisals of the property to be independently made. At that point, then you advertise it for sale. It must bring the average of the 2 appraisals or 90% thereof. And if it doesn't, if you don't get bids, then you know it's still yours. Or you can go back to if you get a bid under that 90% threshold, then you can go back and seek to have the appraisals adjusted, or you can give, or you could have an auction. You can use an auctioneer.
So that's the point where we could say, okay, we're not getting what we think we need out of this.
And you'd have the
We
right.
need to go tear the
You'd
building.
reserve the right to reject all bids.
Okay.
So when we put it up for sale, is there a time period that we have to leave it up for sale, or do we determine?
Statute talks in terms of, I think, 60 to 90 days, but you can shorten that period. It's just that if it's kind of like a silent auction. If you've received bids up in such and such a date, and then the person can increase their bid, you give notice to any other bidders of the increased bid.
We already have the
that
one
problem in this
appraisal,
situation. I
right?
don't know.
Yeah, we have one
We have
appraisal.
one, so we just need to get one more appraisal.
No, you don't.
You have to get.
You did not
anywhere.
get an appraisal for that purpose. Now, I'm hopeful that appraiser will, I would suggest that the appraiser be given the opportunity to, if you will, refresh his appraisal and be one of the 2, so that we won't have the full cost, but that will not come at no cost.
Right.
So what would you anticipate the cost of 2 full appraisals to be?
Well, I mean, originally I would have said 3,000 to 3,500.
For each one?
Well, no, that's the quote that I was given when we were initially looking, until we kind of changed the thought on the appraisal, so we went back down to a different type of appraisal. So I would guess 3,500, something around there.
Or less, and hopefully less with the recent appraisal that can be hopefully utilized by one of the 2 appraisers.
Well, you know, in my opinion, we need to do 1 or 2 things. We need to list it with the restrictions for the cabin with some kind of time frame that we could all agree on, or we need to raise the building. I mean, to me, that's the 2 things that we need to do. It isn't going to, we've already determined that it serves no educational use for us. We've already determined that it was going to cost us too much money to remodel it. It's the most expensive school building in the system to operate because it's outside of city utilities. I mean, we can't get the internet connection there. It was hard to get fiber there, or you couldn't get fiber there.
$80,000.
Yeah, $80,000. So, I mean, there's so many things against the location of the property that deems it not beneficial to us.
It seems to me it makes the most sense to get it started as is and figure out the cabin issue rather than to go right into it spending money. I mean, we're already spending money on it.
Right.
But then to go spend, I mean, I guess the maintenance money goes away if we raise the building, but maybe someone wants the building and
Would it be possible for the board tonight to deem it to be of no educational value, or does that have to be advertised?
No, it doesn't have to be advertised. It's just I'll probably bring back a resolution in writing to confirm this, the determination. I think all we need really to get the process going is for the board to let us know which way it's headed, and the written resolution can follow the directive of the board. The other process you might consider is also, I mean, you can do a lot of parallel proceedings. Issue an RFP to see what the cost will be to raise their building and remove the debris, because you have an assessment of what the property would be worth without the building. Obviously, you wouldn't sell the building and then accept the RFP on its demolition, but it would give you it would identify potential expenses for all of the variables that are identified and under consideration.
Might as well add an RFP then for moving the cabin.
Yeah.
At the same time.
And an RFP to move the cabin and relocate it to a site that RCS would determine.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
yeah, that makes sense.
That seems like the most
At least you have that
thoughtful
piece of information.
approach.
All you're out in doing that is the time it takes to do the RFPs and the legal expense of advertising in the newspaper,
But you
which
have
is
to
not
do that
significant.
pretty much.
So does the board need do we need a motion tonight from the board to proceed in that direction?
Well, I mean, yeah, you need some direction or some form of expression of the board's
Yeah.
intent.
Well, I make the motion that we can move forward with the thought process that we'll eventually want to get rid of Garrison and request 2 RFPs, one for the removal of the cabin, one for the raising of the building. And there was something.
Request a resolution.
And forward, a resolution for deeming the building. We might as well start the resolution for saying.
Ron will have to help me on that, to put together the RFP for the demolition and debris removal.
Yeah, the RFP for the cabin.
Okay.
I think you take the foundations out, and a lot of.
Yeah, there'll be some specifications to be prepared.
Yes, we use that specification.
And may I clarify on the cabin, you would like removal and relocation, correct?
Yes.
Not strictly removal.
Okay, we have a motion and a second a motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions?
Okay, I didn't, not sure I heard everything. A three-prong, if you will, a three-prong attack or approach to the issue. An RFP on cabin removal and relocation as designated by RCS. An RFP for the, if you will, demolition and removal of debris and restoration, gross restoration of the site of the building itself, and then an invitation for bids to buy the building as is, with either an alternative that reserving to RCS the right of access to the cabin for a period of time to do whatever.
I think the bid, we're going to hold off on that until we got, we have to do the educational piece first, right?
The resolution.
We can begin the process. We can begin the process.
I guess that was going to be my point. If you're going to do those three things, then we want to make sure that we coordinate the receipts of that information, those bids, so that the RFP on the demolition comes in at or contemporaneous with the bid for the purchase as is, so you know you have all the balloons that are out of the air at the time you have to make a decision as to which way you think you want to go forward. And that would then entail coordinating the timing with Mr. Mays, who would, I'm expecting to be very instrumental in preparing the specifications for the demolition.
And,
Okay, I'm all right.
and don't we also need to include the request for a the formal resolution about the building being?
The finding.
Well, no, I think Member Slifer noted, you're telling me that. No one's saying that you think we're going to be programming educationally at that site in the foreseeable future. I will confirm that with a written resolution that you'll adopt at a future meeting confirming that finding. That's more housekeeping for the State Board of Accounts than it is anything else. I guess what we need is to know where what direction you want us to take, so that a reasonably significant amount of work in preparing those specifications can be done. And I don't know how much asbestos we have to deal with, if we have an analysis, and Mr. Mays and I are going to have to spend some time together talking about those issues that would be involved in demolition.
Okay, so are we okay on the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
I have a question that is along the same line, but not on the Garrison School. I wanted to ask about the Highland Heights School.
Okay, let's make sure that we're finished with this, so, motion carried. Okay. Now.
I wanted to ask about the Highland Heights School, where we stood on that. I know we had someone that was interested in leasing it, and that's been quite a while, so.
The process on that has involved Reed Hospital, and we've been in conversation with them, discussion. My understanding is that they have gone back to some of their vendors to see about the business model, and they are re-examining that. Is that anything is that consistent with what?
That's where we're at right now.
But that's also costing us money. I don't think it's to the extent that Garrison is, to sit there. Do they have any kind of a time frame in mind?
Sure.
They're working as quickly as they can. I know that it's not something that's just sitting on their desks.
Okay.
I know that
So they still plan on moving
at
forward?
this point, we have heard no different.
Have we analyzed our costs of that building sitting there?
We should probably start.
We have that information, but I'm not so sure that it's available for you tonight. We could put that in an
I wasn't
update.
expecting it. I was just curious because we have done.
We have that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we are ready to move on now to action items.
Our first action item is approval for a corporation-sponsored choir field trip, and we have the person making that request. He's been very patient with us.
This should be easier than anything you've done so far.
Are you sure?
No, I'm saying it should be.
Should be, we're expecting us to read
We know how
something,
that
so.
goes.
You're fine.
Okay, so every 3 years in the music department, the groups have gone on a trip. And we do this because we go to compete. And we've done this, well, since I've been here. And every year we've gone, they've always received top awards. And it helps us prepare for the ISMA contest, which, if you look at the first page here, we've received 79 consecutive gold division ratings. Since I've been here, we've never received anything but gold with all of our choirs. And our top groups have been in the top 16 in the state, 15 out of the last 19 years. So we look at this as kind of a reward for the kids, but also something to help prepare them. This coming Saturday, we're going to Anderson University for a choral festival, and we'll be listening to some other groups and getting a professor there at Anderson to work with our groups as well. So we try to do as much as we can to help the kids prepare and be successful. And this is something that I think keeps students' interest, and it's a very educational thing that they really enjoy, can remember for the rest of their lives. I know I've had students come back from 20 years or even more and say, I remember that choir trip that we took wherever it was, and boy, that was a lot of fun, and so on and so forth. So I do most of the legwork on this myself. I call the bus companies, call different companies so I can get the best prices on things. If I have students who have financial needs, I have some finances available to help them. In the past, I've always been able to assist in ways that people who wanted to go were able to go. So I don't think we've ever left anyone behind if they had the desire to go. There was a way that we can make it happen. And we were looking at spring break, but that doesn't work because the band's going on a trip. So I have kids who cross over in band and choir, and I would be losing too many students, so that didn't work. And probably the way this looks here, this itinerary would actually be singing on Friday, not Saturday. This is just a sample that she ran up. We can pretty much do whatever we want. The lady said, actually, last time we did this, we did it on a Friday. It works much better because kids are able to sing in the afternoon far better than they are in the morning, as I experience at 7:10 every morning. So we would go there Friday, we'd get there, we'll sing, we'll compete, and then we're going to go take in West Side, or we're going to go to Medieval Times, and then the next evening is the awards banquet, and we'll see West Side Story, and there's obvious Shed Aquarium and a lot of other things that we can do.
Shopping, don't forget
Well, they'll do that, believe me. So, but yes, we'll do that as well, so, yes.
Sounds like they'll enjoy themselves.
Sounds like a great opportunity.
I think, well, they're pretty excited about the opportunity. If everything goes as planned, then our next plan is set up payment plans and they get started. I've already handed out a letter of intent if they were interested. The parents signed it and sent it back. So I have like 40 students right as of now that said yes, they would like to go. And so I said, well, the next step is board approval. Then I'll get them something saying, here's our payment plan. First one will be like $50. Now I know you're committed. And then we'll go 2 more payments or 3 more
Remind
payments.
me of the number of students who have the opportunity to go?
It's chamber and symphonic, so that's roughly about 65 or 70 students.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for providing this opportunity. And I know this is all condensed now, but something like this takes a lot of planning and organization and a lot
Yes,
of
and
time.
we're just going to get started. It'll get a lot. But it is, the great thing about it is I've done it so many times that I have it, and then I just have all my payment plans, my Excel sheets, so we know how all this works, and we'll give them some opportunities yet to raise some more money if they need it for spending or for their payment plan, whatever. So, but not too many fundraisers, because we do I like to do one fundraiser a year, and so the idea is that we save for 3 years. So I have that money for a trip fund that I can help students, but we also pay the transportation out of that, part of the transportation, so it makes the cost much cheaper. So I don't really know many schools that can afford the students something like this at the price that we do it. And a lot of that's because I get on the phone and call people and say, hey, what can you do for me? So we make it affordable and yet, I think, a very good trip for them.
Okay. So is the recommendation to go?
The recommendation is to support that with an approval.
Okay. Motion made by Susie Hively, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right, we'll get them going. Thank you so
Bon
much.
voyage.
Yeah. Thank you.
Our next action item is approval of the state high ability grant, and there's an attachment here. It looks very similar to what it's been in the past. There may be some additional dollars dedicated towards some assessment supplies, but aside from that, it should be a very similar proposal to what we've seen in the past. I would recommend approval.
Okay.
I so move.
Motion made by Jeff Slifer.
Second.
Seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
The next action item is a recommendation to close the Hibbard Pool.
What about
603.
policy?
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. We do need to have that. Policy 2265, second reading and adoption. Let's do that. This is the second reading and adoption of this policy. It has been under discussion for several weeks. It has been approved in the first reading as presented for second reading and adoption. That is where it is tonight. It's as presented on the web.
Motion made by Susie Hively, seconded by Jeff Slifer. Comments or questions?
I do have a comment, and I mentioned this in an earlier discussion, but it sort of stayed on my shoulder all this time, and I feel that it's necessary to say that this whole problem that we have in our community with not having youth activities at the level that we had gotten comfortable with some years ago, because we have lost a lot of the people in our community who've moved away for employment reasons or whatever. We just don't have the support system to have the youth events that we once did in our community. And I feel like that's a real issue that our whole community needs to deal with. And I would really challenge us to challenge the rest of the community to consider having some sort of a youth summit / family summit, the way that we had the education summit some years ago, to see how we might be able to have people come together to brainstorm resolving these issues, because we have an awful lot of kids in our community, as we saw here earlier, who just don't have the chances that were once available when my children were growing up. There were so many things that available to them that are not available to our children now. And so I just wanted to say that, because I feel like as a board we have an opportunity to challenge the rest of the community to join us, not necessarily in having RCS fund a solution to the problem, but perhaps having the community gather to discuss how some things like this could be improved, because it would benefit our kids.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Okay, Suzanne.
There are a lot of opportunities still left, though, too.
There are some still left.
Because I get things from the YMCA, I get things from Girls Inc., I get things from the Soccer Association, the flag
I'm not
football.
suggesting that we don't have any, because we have some very wonderful things going on.
And go over to Tiernan Center on Sunday afternoon. It's so busy over there with basketball. It's really actually pretty phenomenal. There, every court in there is busy. I just wanted to add that I had several phone calls from folks that have chosen to have their students in Richmond, and some that haven't, or that have, but it's been a really long time ago. And 99.9% of the folks really support the policy the way that it's written now. I had only one negative from the last meeting, obviously. So I think we have captured what I think our students and their families and our supporters, because not all of the folks that called me currently have students. I got several calls from folks who had students and made some choices at the time and had other options and chose Richmond Community Schools. And so I think the group has done a really good job of formulating this policy, and I'm pleased that we took the time to look at it, because it needed to be looked at, because it was written in a different time, and I think it's good.
Well, I think we should always keep at the forefront opportunities that we can help provide, whether it's within our school system or whether it's throughout the community. I mean,
Well, and all of the research on student involvement in whether it's school extracurricular or community activities demonstrates that kids who are involved are kids who do well in school, kids who become good citizens, kids who become community leaders. I mean, it's just so clear that.
Well, and I think it's some of it is the sign of the times, and as we talk about the pool recommendation, and we talked about the pool and swimming in general yesterday in our finance committee, how kids just aren't swimming like they used to, and we don't even have swimming at the high school anymore. So, and we talked about what is our obligation to help grow that again. So, I think that it has to be a continuing conversation. So I appreciate those comments. So, all in favor? Let's see, we have a motion on the floor, right? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Can I just say something? We do still have the swim team at the high school. I just want to clarify that, but swimming is not a part of the curriculum in phys ed anymore. Right.
Right.
They're not offering that course.
Right.
Okay, we're at the Hibbard, let's see.
Yep.
Yes, I'm on. The Hibbard Pool recommendation. As Mrs. Morganson mentioned, yesterday the Finance Committee took up the topic of the Hibbard Pool recommendation. Mr. Tidrow had written a recommendation to me that it was time to close that pool. And the reason he came to that conclusion was that there's been a time study, not only of the Hibbard Pool, but of the Tiano Pool. And that time study resulted in a conclusion that there just was not enough use to justify the continued maintenance of the pool. Pools are very expensive items within a school budget and a facility, and if you're not using them, it's a tremendous expenditure. So what we're looking at right now, I've brought I've brought all the PE teachers together, and I've asked them to discuss the importance of swimming within the curriculum. And one of the options that we're pursuing right now is designing a proposal that would involve all third grade through sixth grade students. What would it look like if all third grade through sixth grade students had a swimming experience each of those years, so that by the time they're in the upper levels of intermediate school, they have had 4 years of swim lessons. Now, it's not continuous. They're not looking at entire days all 4 years, but it would be an exposure that would go from just a life-saving skill to development of a leisure activity, knowledge and skill as a leisure activity. We're looking at that design. We're looking at the impact on our pools. At this point, with the kind of use that we have at the high school, we could probably do that kind of curriculum component, grades 3 through 6, at the Tiana pool, very easily. What we're examining, though, and the reason I'm not bringing you a recommendation to actually do away with the Hibbard pool, we're examining what it might look like if we develop the interest again. I mean, actually, students will develop interest, you're assuming, by being exposed to it for 4 years. There might be a resurgence of interest in not only in extracurricular activities, but also in elective courses at the high school in PE. So we're also looking at what it would look like if we had some greater use of the pool by high school students. Right now, then, what I'm recommending is that we close the Hibbard pool, but maintain it. We would not maintain it full. We would drain the pool. We would, in essence, mothball the pool until we are sure that we don't need it. There may be another recommendation coming down the pike at a later time to actually close the pool, redo the pool. We've looked at what it would take to actually fill the pool in and create a whole different space in that building at Hibbard. That's expensive, too, because we would have to take out all the decking. The decking is sloped for drainage purposes. That would have to come out. The pool would have to come out, of course, and then that would all be filled back in. New flooring. Mr. Mays brought up an important topic today, and that is future planning. If we were to do that today, if we were to say, okay, let's just fill it in. Let's take up the floor and fill it in. The problem with doing that is, if you fill it in too soon, you may have eliminated some options down the road for repurposing that space, especially if you're putting conduit in the flooring. You'd have to do a lot more difficult processes then. So, recommendation right now is beginning, January 1st, we would be eliminating all use of that pool, and
We would like to close it immediately because of other concerns with the...
Is there any use of that pool going on right now?
Correct, but with the humidity and so forth that's in there right now, we would want to close it immediately.
But could that be shifted to Tiana pool? Whatever is happening at the
They could.
Hibbard pool right now?
So are you saying that this would be so urgent it might be considered an emergency, so that we're changing our use, we're changing the transportation of our students in the places where they're currently
And those leases.
Recent
Exercising.
events, correct.
Plus, we were leasing it, and that ends.
That's really not an issue at this point now.
We would not want...
They're discontinuing that.
Because there's middle school students going there right now, right?
Correct, we have fifth graders going there now from other schools, tested dentists, so...
Let's
We have not set up anything yet with the high school to get those kids there. However, Mrs. Wolpe has encouraged that, says, but we haven't set that up. And that would be
Can't
something
wait
that
till
the...
January, can't wait till
To close it down here?
it needs to be now.
Well, could you just make the recommendation as your time permits? And
as
your schedule?
quickly as we can make
Right.
alterations
It
in
makes
those
sense, because I think we need to
classes.
remind the public that part of this is being driven financially, because we were considering spending $110,000, $120,000 to fix the heating and air unit that was in that, and there's some additional expenses. So I think we were looking at, over the next couple of years, having to spend as much as $200,000 in that area. So this isn't something that we're doing just because we want to close the pool.
What was the cost to mothball it?
we could mothball it for a minimal cost of about $500 to set up some railings and so forth and do some drilling. So we could, the railings would be for safety purposes, but we'd eliminate all the water.
Minimal, yeah.
Right, yeah, so,
So is there not a swim club using that pool right now?
no.
Okay. I thought they were still in there for some reason.
Okay, we have a recommendation. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I would like to just make one comment, and as the mother of 3 swimmers, who all took lifeguarding at the high school and had marvelous summer jobs and for quite a long time, lifeguarding. It was a great career education, kind of a skill, and it provided a lot of kids with an opportunity to work in our community and provide a service. I'm sure there are probably some other ways you could get that certification now, but I'm not sure what they are.
Well, I think yesterday we talked about that in the Finance Committee, and the problem was, the reason they eliminated it in the phys ed component was because they did not have the students signing up for it.
Interest.
No
We don't even
interest.
offer the certification at the high
Yeah.
school.
I mean, I agree with you, but that's where our conversation started then about how times have changed and kids, you know, aren't going to the pool like they used to go to the pool.
She had it in there, but she had to take it out. Only
Okay,
4 kids.
thank you. We're ready for our work session now.
Work session is on our,
Barb
on our topic of the health and wellness. We have an employee angle on that, and Barb Pennington, who is our benefits specialist, will present to you tonight some information, and she's also going to get you up and moving.
You've been warned. What we're going to look at tonight is the trust financials, some changes that we made to the SPD, the summary plan description, touch on the Affordable Care Act, and look at our wellness and some initiatives that we're going to take this year. This first chart shows our experience, the claims over premiums. It's a comparison of 2014 to 2013, and as you can see, we finished the year out at exactly 100%. That was our aggregate for this year, which means we were paying out in claims as much as we were putting into the trust. This graph shows you our claim experience through the months where we hit at. The purple is this year, and you notice we kind of spiked up and went down and had a little spike, hence the 100% aggregate that we had this year. And then our drug claims, same chart, shows the last 3 years. Purple is this year. The spikes that you see really are not a true accounting of the claims. We had an issue with our PBM, our pharmacy benefit manager, getting the claims done electronically to pay on time. So that's kind of why we're a little bit up and down there. And I do want to mention, too, on our drugs, we have 85% usage of generic drugs, which is very, very high and very good for the plan. So our people are doing the right thing. On the summary plan description, we had 2 amendments recently. The first amendment, well, both amendments were to comply with the Affordable Care Act. The first one, we had to state when we were going to have our yearly open enrollment, and that is in November. And we had to change some language to the COBRA language because we had some language in there that talked about pre-existing conditions, and that is no longer in the plan at all. Pre-existing went away as of November 1st. We also had to restate that we are a non-grandfathered status plan. The second amendment, we had to make some changes to our co-insurance limit to comply with the Affordable Care Act. The total dollars of your co-insurance limit did not change, but instead they broke it out. On medical, there was a $4,000 co-insurance limit for a single person and a $1,000 limit on your prescriptions now.
On the family, there's an $8,000 co-insurance limit and a $2,000 co-insurance limit on your prescription. So again, the total did not change, but it was just broken out in a different way. And the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, and we've got the little guy scratching his head trying to figure it out, as we all are. The newly released regulations talked about the employer shared responsibility under the Affordable Care Act for 2015. And it states that non-calendar plan year renewals, which RCS is a non-calendar plan renewal year, we have until 2015 renewal date to begin our compliance with the employer shared responsibility. And that is offering the coverage to those that average the 30 hours or more. The Act requires that we measure and determine the eligibility. If they're eligible, we would offer the insurance. We have a report in our CompuTrol system through K-Time that will give us that information that we need to determine who's eligible. Our initial measurement period can be anywhere between 3 and 12 months. I think we're looking at probably averaging the 6 months. And our stability period for those individuals that we bring on have to be the same as they are for all the other employees. So our stability period is for a year, that plan year. Our administrative period cannot exceed 90 days. And they did issue what they called a bright line definition now of seasonal employees, and that's if your annual employment is 6 months or less, you're generally not considered to be a full-time employee. We will bring a board resolution sometime in mid-year after the final regulations are released for 2016. So you'll be seeing that. Also, some items that affect us on the Affordable Care Act are the PCORI fees, the Patient-Centered Outcome Research Institute fees. We pay that every year. It's due by July 31st. It's paid through our taxes, basically. When we pay our taxes, Karen pays that. And then the transitional reinsurance fees, that is a plan-based fee, whereas the PCORI fees are employer-based fees. The employers pay that. The plan pays the transitional reinsurance fees, and those are $63 per enrolled head count. So that's per belly button. This year our focus is going to be on wellness, and our goal is to build environments that will support healthy lifestyles. And we are calling on all the adults to be the role models, to be champions for change this year. Some of the things that we're already doing as far as wellness is we recently started a Weight Watchers at Work program. It's at the high school. It's on Monday evenings. We also have Zumba on 2 evenings a week on Mondays and Thursdays. On Mondays, it is at the high school, and on Thursdays, it is at Hibbard, and it's at 4:45. And we have a yoga class on Wednesday evenings, which starts at 4:45 at the high school. Some things that we're going to be taking a look at, the Indiana Model School Wellness Policy. That policy has a lot to do with student wellness, but there is also some staff wellness that's incorporated into that policy. We are going to take a look at the healthy food options during business hours and meetings. And we want to look at having a smoking cessation class this year and a walking program. Also maybe adding some additional fitness classes. We're also looking at doing a coaching program with Reed Hospital through our partnership with Reed. That does require some initial screenings in order to be part of that coaching program, where they would actually follow up with people who have health issues and make sure they're getting their exercise, eating right, those kinds of things. And we have an activity, as you were warned. This is a website that our teachers use, this GoNoodle.com. They use it for breaks for the students to kind of get them up and get them moving around, get that brain activity going. So I'm going to invite all of you to stand up.
Well, that's the first step.
Is that all?
Oh. Stretch.
Maybe I should have gone these.
You out there.
Go. Should have.
And the people out here.
Oh, he's got to go.
Oh, yeah.
Sure he does.
does feel
Nice
good.
move, Rod. Get the wiggles out, I love it.
Who's on TV?
Now, what are we supposed to be doing with this?
You just follow along, you're going to be
Right,
moving.
it says.
This is Rad Chad.
I love homonyms.
And there's a lot of choices, as you can see. The one we're going to do is the cuckoo kangaroo. These are the cuckoo kangaroo brothers.
And we're just
This
supposed
is
to mimic what they're doing.
Yes, just follow along.
Where's the pizza?
Yeah, sure. Oh, I can do what he's doing.
Your body, moving. Your body, moving. Your body, moving. Let me see you dance. Let me see you
Was made for little kids. I bet they love it. We're done. This is a short one. This is the shortest one. Oh my God. I know that computer has a stop. We get the idea.
Your body, moving. Your body, moving.
I see a lot of future Zumba people.
Thank you, Barb.
Now tell me you're not warm now. See? You're burning something.
I move for the deletion of all. I move for the deletion of all recording devices.
We need to modify that.
This will be the last time you report.
Perfect.
That was great, Barb.
That was.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barb. Most of your presentation was enjoyable.
Now we made you wait now.
Can't you just see kids absolutely loving that, though?
Oh, yes.
Oh, they do.
You could just tell they would have a ball, and they probably, and when the wiggles, I saw get the wiggles out or
wiggles.
whatever. You know that happens.
There are a couple that are calming ones, too.
Well, sure, but
Want to swim through the pudding.
nice.
That's ours.
Chocolate or vanilla, there you go.
Okay, we're ready for our second public commentary.
Was all that on
And,
videotape?
Yes.
Was that like,
And then Allie was getting it.
Kelly. Hi, Kelly.
I don't even know where to begin.
Did you get your wiggles out?
No, I did not. I had some prepared notes, but now I feel a compulsion to talk about some other issues. Students enjoy this because they like laughing at their adults. Particularly this one. I want to speak to the board after listening to the presentation by Mr. Staley that I found to be interesting, and for me it raised a number of questions. I was not aware of Mr. Staley's presence on the agenda, nor was I aware prior to tonight of this, of the Crossing Educational Center. But for me, it did raise a number of questions, and the one that has taken prominence over all others is, has to do with the fact that over the last few years, Richmond Community Schools, as an urban school, has had to deal with the impact of the expansion of the state voucher system. And with that in mind, as both a teacher in the system and as the president of the Richmond Education Association, the question that I feel compelled to ask, particularly as I work in a public school setting, would to ask the board why they would entertain the possibility of outsourcing our educational responsibility for our at-risk students. I believe that if the board feels that our efforts to help our at-risk students are falling short, the question for me then becomes, why are we not working within to correct any deficiencies that we might see within our current programs? And if that's the case, I think that we better serve our students as a public school rather than outsourcing to a private school, which just the amount of research I was able to do while I was sitting here in the boardroom showed me that the biggest bulk of the money that will go to, or that comes into Richmond Community Schools in state support then goes to this particular program. So the benefits to our school system, I think, may not outweigh the benefit that I think we would find if we just simply work from within, no excuses, to strengthen what we already have rather than outsource our at-risk students who are our students. And we have, I think, an educational and a moral responsibility to be responsible for them. And unless there are questions, thank you for the time.
Thank you for those comments, Kelly. Well taken. We are now ready for board reports, old business.
I do have a report, and I think it's great that Kelly was just up there, because it's about collective bargaining. It's too soon to say that we have a contract settled, but we do have a tentative agreement on one, and the teachers will be taking some action. The board will be taking subsequent action pending the determination of the teachers. But I would like to make a public thank you to the members of the board that attended Monday's session, as well as just the administrative team. Also, I would like to compliment and express gratitude to the REA for the process that has taken place. It's not like it used to be, and it requires some structure, a little different from the one that we've had in the past, and a whole different process. Takes a team effort on both sides, and I just would like to say that we're very optimistic that we've arrived at a very positive settlement to both sides. Time will tell now whether we can get agreement, but we're at a much better place than we were the last time I made a comment on collective bargaining.
Okay, thank you. We are ready to preview our upcoming meeting.
The upcoming meeting is a little different from meetings that we've had in the past, because it's a special session, a very brief special session, and it is dependent on action taken by the teachers on the contract. Next week we have a retreat. The first few minutes of the retreat will be a special session dedicated to approving a contract if it's ratified by the REA. And the reason we're doing this instead of taking it to the next meeting, next regularly scheduled meeting, is that there are some restrictions in when we submit our contract to the state. That has to be done by, I believe it's the 21st, and that's just not possible unless we have the special session. So that's the preview of the upcoming meeting. Now, the regularly scheduled meeting will have a discussion about transportation changes that may be coming. There may be some other action taken regarding the Garrison project, as we talked. Those are the two topics I would like to bring to your attention as possible meeting topics.
And for anyone who might be interested, our meeting date is a little different the next time, because it will be on a Monday evening, November 24th, because of Thanksgiving. being that week. So Monday instead of Wednesday. Press conference? Anyone have any questions? Well, it doesn't look like it. We're ready for our bell ringer.
Bell ringer tonight is all about yesterday, Veterans Day. Dwayne Hodgen, class of '62, was our speaker at the Veterans Day Assembly. Did a very nice job as an alumnus, but also as a speaker on the topic of veterans. But I have to tell you, he was a little eclipsed, and he even noticed it, by our high school choir. The most beautiful rendition of the Star Spangled Banner that I may have ever heard. It was just spectacular. But then the evening came, and Melody Weichert, from our CIS person from Charles Elementary, was celebrated as the CIS Unsung Hero for this year. And the Charles staff, not all the Charles staff, but a good number of the Charles staff was there to support her, and it was nice to see. Those are our bell ringers.
And we are adjourned.